Hey everyone, so I'm doing a live for all of the October tarot readings for each one of the zodiac signs. So if you're watching this replay later on YouTube, maybe possibly on Rumble, there will be timestamps down below so you can just kind of skip ahead to whichever zodiac sign you want to watch. If you're watching for your zodiac sign, I'm either going to be going in order that I have on my list to make sure I don't forget anybody, or you can go ahead and throw out whichever zodiac sign you have. Hey girl, what's up? Hi. Gemini, let's start with Gemini. So again, yes, the timestamps will be down below if you're watching the replay later. So we're going to start with Gemini. Cool. If you're here in the room, you're welcome to let me know if there's a focus that you want there to be on any particular part. If you want to, hi, lovely. And then Scorpio. Cool. We'll go Gemini and then Scorpio. All right. So that way you guys can like skip around. You can watch I suggest watching for your sun or your rising sign first. And then, if you feel like you still want to kind of check that out, read for the moon. Just a last minute reminder before I get into the readings. If it's not feeling like it's your vibe, it's not like resonating, the message isn't resonating, then it's just not your message this month. These are collective readings, so it's a little hard to like put it on point for every single sign that's out there. But if you want a personal one-to-one reading with me, you can go to the link in my bio, or if you're watching this later, the link down below, and you can book with me personally. All right, let's get into it. Let's see. Rising is Scorpio. Oh, perfect. So you get to like watch them back to back. This is awesome. All right, my dear. I actually have a new deck that I haven't done a video on yet, but I'm going to use it. Oh, check that out. All right, so it's a Day of the Dead one, so, just like I figure we're starting to get into the season, so why not? All right, so first card out, and you're welcome to also, two cards out. You're welcome to also put into the chat, if I'm reading for the sign, right now we're reading for Gemini, you're welcome to put into the chat, like if you want it to be kind of focused around general or love. This is not, again, it's not a personal reading, but it will be for like all Geminis, right? It'll be general and like what's up or something else, so. Appropriate, I get too. Yeah, how appropriate that two came out, right? For the Geminis. All right, so let's take a look at what we've got going on here. All right, so we're starting off with the Four of Pentacles and the Three of Pentacles. So it's interesting. I would actually put these here. Very interesting. So there's something about working together, right? So for some of you Geminis, some of you are actually working together with maybe other people in the community to grow and create something, right? So working on maybe a particular project, maybe there's something to do with the home or something with your friendships or something like that, but something to do with your community. And here's an interesting part. So I'm going to say this is a two-parter for the month, which is not surprising because we're actually going to start eclipse season at the end of the month of October. So it might feel like a two-parter month anyway. The first part of the month might feel kind of one way, like you're going into a space of like creating something together with other people or collaborating with somebody or more than one person. But then as we get into the next part of the month, the latter half of the month, what I'm seeing here is the Four of Pentacles. Now, this is a little bit of an interesting kind of take on the Four of Pentacles. I like to show the photo so that you guys can actually see it. And if there's anything that resonates, like any symbology that's in there for you, then take that into account because there's only so much I can read on my end, but there are little winks from our universe that are kind of like dream symbology that show up, that are the culmination of your own experiences in life. So remember that as we're going through this. So I'll get that a little bit closer for you so you can take a look. Now, when we're taking a look at the Four of Pentacles, this is an interesting take on it. Four of Pentacles can be a little bit miserly, can be also, though, the way that I like to actually read it is like somebody has gotten to a place of establishing their physical world, the things that are tangible. It could be finances, right? Getting to a certain place of having established things and then not wanting anything to change, like wanting to keep things stable in a certain holding pattern, knowing full well that as much as we want to have that as humans, sometimes change is the constant, things will change, but wanting to keep that level of stability and like kind of hold on and grasp and hold on to that, which is why sometimes people can read it as like being a little bit miserly. You know what I just realized? I'm reading with this particular deck and I forgot that I was wearing this tank top today. It's how apropos. Anyway, so I think whatever it is that you're creating, you might want to be mindful of, as we start to kind of move into eclipse season, certain things, or people start to get eclipsed out, it can be a little bit hard to allow some of the movement to happen in areas that we weren't anticipating, and we don't want to be moved on the chess piece, or the chessboard of our life, right? So something to keep in mind, that those feelings might really be coming up, and watching yourself so that you're not holding on too tightly, because that's actually where a lot of that that resistance and that pain can really come in and affect us, right? All right, so let's actually we've got a two-parter for the month, and that's usually what I say is the overall energy for the month. So Gemini rising, Gemini moon, that's the overall energy. But let's take a look at, I think yours is actually, that's funny, I was like thinking of what I was about to say out loud and that came out. Yours is an interesting one, because I was actually doing a certain spread for all of the zodiac signs for this month, but because you had two, and I feel like that really strongly was kind of doing this duality two-parter kind of vibe for you guys, I was like, all right, well, what's the advice here? Like, what are your guides trying to pull through for you for how to navigate this? It's really interesting because we have the Six of Swords showing up here, right? So Six of Swords, and I'm getting that close so that you can actually see the imagery, right? Six of Swords is interesting because we're traversing over the waters, the emotional waters, but it's swords, right? So this is air energy. This is our communication. This is what is our personal truth. This is our thoughts, right? Our beliefs. So these are all of these kinds of airy qualities, and we're using those to traverse over the emotional waters and go on to greener pastures, onto other lands. So I think that in this particular case, there's something that you're working on. There's something that you guys, and again, like, this is a general reading, so this could be about love, right? This could be about a personal love interest. This could be about, a project that you're working on, some kind of collaboration, whatever it is. It is a cool pick, yeah. So it could be about that, but what we have is like, okay, so I'm moving on. I'm moving on to other waters. I'm going to go explore the land over here. I'm going to go to this other island. I'm in search of new land, right? That's where they're actually headed towards, the greener pastures. And that other land is other tangible things, right? Other earthly qualities, other foundations, other stability. And it's really interesting because what we started with were two earth sign cards that are back to back, and it's a progression, right? We're moving from the 3 into the 4, so there is a progression that's happening. You're building something, you're working on something together with at least one other person, there's somebody else involved, and then moving into the space of like, I don't want to let this actually change, it's feeling unstable in some ways, and the advice that you're getting is, hey, you need to consider that actually you need to move forward, not necessarily away. Sometimes you can take the boat to the other side and turn around and come back, so don't freak out. Like, you can come back if you need to, but it is saying that there is a journey that you're going on. You're traversing a new path, and you're crossing those emotional waters to another grounding space, right? So I also I'm getting the sense of like something to look for, like what to actually look out for. It actually feels like it's this card here. So just like some caution to have for you, Gemini, is that the King of Swords is coming up. So in a challenge position like this, when we're looking at the King of Swords, yes, sometimes this can represent a person. I know that some tarot readers will say, oh, this is a person. I don't necessarily think that it's always that. So take this and actually have it, apply it to, however makes the most sense for you. Oh, really quickly, I'm just going to throw this on Do Not Disturb because let's not get any calls. I've actually had that happen before. Okay, great. So, all right. So what I'm seeing here, though, is that with the King of Swords, we have, there is a tendency in a challenge position with any swords character to be cold and cutting, to be really maybe precise, but for it to be kind of unfeeling, not in an emotional space, right? It's very cerebral, very logical, very like matter of fact. So as you're going through navigating whatever conversations need to be had, traversing those waters, working with other people, dealing with changes and things that need to be like, there's clearly stuff that needs to be communicated. It's interesting that you have both pentacles on the top here, and we have both swords on the bottom here, right? So there's a lot, what I'm seeing is like, there's something with, your communication, your beliefs, with your cerebral area of life, like the mind, and then also what is tangible, what's stable, what's so. and just seeing that, you know, as you traverse this path over the course of the month, especially when we come into eclipses starting towards the end of the month, just really want to make sure that you are being cautious about how you go about communicating the things that you're going to be communicating. So let's see. Yes, it is. Seriously, it's one of the best features ever. So anyhow, so that's what I have for you, Gemini. I'm not really feeling necessarily. I am feeling one more card, actually. One more card. It feels like there's an extra like bonus card to pull for you guys. So let's see what that's about. One more message for my Gemini peoples. Okay. More swords. In this particular deck, it's crystals, right? So we have the Seven of Crystals, which would be the Seven of Swords in other decks. I would say that, you know, on a personal level, make sure that you're not deceiving yourself, and you know, we're coming out of, this morning, early morning, Mercury's not moving very quickly, but we just came out of the retrograde. There's still a shadow period. Make sure that you're checking everything, like dot your I's, cross your T's. If you're signing contracts, if you're doing anything that has to do with that, make sure that you're really taking a good look at evaluating the people that you are working with, the people that are around you and surrounding you. Yes, sometimes this can be about being tricked or manipulated or fooled in some way. Yes, it can be about that, but it can also be about the ways that we do this with ourselves, right? So really make sure that your eyes are open. You know, yes, use your intuition, but I would say be in a space where you're being really maybe more cerebral about the way that you manage and navigate the rest of this month. So I find that Byron Katie is really great for that. A lot of people find her work kind of more cerebral, but it is an inquiry process that really, I think, illuminates what is so and allows us to take personal responsibility and see things a lot more clearly and more fairly. So just something to kind of put out there. How do you figure out your rising sign? Yeah, so just to answer your question, there are people talk about the main three. There's your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign. There isn't a falling sign. So you can find that out if you can go to something as simple as like astro.com, and it'll ask you to put in your birthday, birth time, birthplace. So you want to have the exact time. If you're kind of guessing, it can change a lot of the placements, but once you do that, it'll actually tell you what your sun sign and your moon sign and your rising sign are. So, but if you just know your sun sign and you're here, you know, I know that you said Scorpio, so we're getting to that next. So yeah, that's just something to really consider as you're moving through the month, is to make sure that you're just like really aware, really open. Byron Katie, like I said, I find her inquiry process to be really great for that, but just really asking yourself, like, is this what's so? Am I seeing things clearly? That kind of thing. So I want to just check the, hey, how's it going? Scapes of Land, how's it going? So, not the best reading I've ever had. Yeah, you know, like it's all in how we check it out, right? So yeah, so with, let's see, I'm sorry, Johnny Texan. Yeah, no, that's like it's actually just the beginning of your natal chart. So if you know that your sun sign is like you're a Scorpio, for instance, as you said, and here you can watch whatever message comes through for you for the Scorpio and like see how that resonates. Again, it's a collective reading, so it's for like all the Scorpios, right? So if you want a one-to-one reading that's more specific, I would say, you know, definitely check out the link in my bio for that, for booking that. Also though, I will say, like, yeah, the world of astrology and what can actually come through with that, there's so much information. So you're like, if you open that box, there's like a ton of information you'll get from starting to kind of dig into your natal chart and learn about that and get a reading. I have a recommendation for someone I'm actually learning right now. I'm in the process of studying psychological astrology, so you know, I'm not ready quite yet to read charts. I'm getting there, but I do have recommendations for really good people if you want that. So, oh my God, thank you so much. I so appreciate that. Thank you. I will receive that compliment. Thank you so much. Okay, so Gemini, that's what I have for you. It's like, I actually, just to kind of put it out there, I don't think it's necessarily like a negative reading. it might have challenging aspects. There are things to kind of watch for, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna have a bad month or anything like that, right? It's just like, hey, like this is kind of, that's the part about tarot that I really love, is it just says, all right, this is what's coming down the tracks. Now I have the opportunity to shift and decide to step right, step left, like which direction do I want to go now that I see what's like coming towards me, and to just be aware so that you can kind of handle it more consciously, like, and just being aware that how it shows up might look differently than how we expect as well. So again, like the Seven of Crystals is not necessarily a card that most people want to really get, but again, it doesn't necessarily mean that someone's about to trick you. It can mean that we might not be seeing things very clearly, and we need to really examine that. All right, so that's what I have for my Geminis, and next we are moving on to Scorpio. So we have Geminis, check. All right, we are moving on to Scorpio. By the way, I am going in order of just like anyone who puts their sign into the chat. So you can put your sign into the chat, and if I see it, I'll read that one next. We just did Gemini, we're moving on to Scorpio. And otherwise, like if I don't see anything in the chat, I'll just start from the top of my list and go through whoever I haven't done yet. So, all right, Scorpio, we're gonna use this deck for you as well. Let's get a sense of what the overall vibe is. I'm feeling like this card is really popping out here. Okay, and then, interesting. So, and we'll also take a look at, and by the way, I mean, Scorpio, we're coming up on your time. I mean, we're still in like the tropical Libra time, right? But if we're looking at tropical astrology, we're about to move into some Scorpio time a little bit sorry, that's later on. Sorry. But yes, it's much later, but yeah, we'll be hitting that Scorpio energy. I feel like this deck is appropriate for Scorpio energy. This year, I actually don't know which day it falls on, like when we move into Scorpio from here, but I definitely should check that out soon. I'm a little behind on things, so. All right, Scorpio, I'm feeling like this needs a good shuffle for you. Let's get a sense of how the month is gonna play out. I'm feeling this card here. Okay, here and here. Let's start with this, my dear Scorpios. So, overall feeling that I have that I'm seeing going on for the month of October for you, and again, this is Scorpio sun, moon, or rising, so you can feel free to check that out, but we've got the sun, or the overall feeling for the month of October is the Hermit. So, and let me get that actually a little bit closer so that you can actually see it, so you can check it out. So yeah, so we have the Hermit card. Now, the Hermit card is really about going within. It's about kind of really bringing yourself inwards, which at the time, like at least for where we are in the northern United States area, like for where we're located, we're moving into fall. And so depending on where you are when you're watching this, apply it, in that way. But if you are in this region, then this is super appropriate, because this tends to be a time of like going inward in a lot of ways, right? Either way, wherever you are particularly located in the world, this has to do with asking yourself the big picture questions. This guiding light that we actually see showing up in the Hermit card is really about looking inwards and finding like that kind of core inner guiding light that you possess, right? So your inner guiding light, what instead of looking outward to teachers, which is of course valuable, but it's like you're being guided to say like, hey, instead of looking outwards, instead of looking for like a guru or a teacher or like somebody to show you what's what, look inside and remember what is your guiding experience, like where is your inner wisdom. This is also about asking yourself the big picture questions, right? So this is about asking yourself like, and this sounds general, but when we take something that's really simple and we earnestly really apply ourselves to it, it can be extremely profound, right? So asking yourself the big picture questions. How do I want to feel? What do I want in my experience? What do I want in life? Like, what is it that I'm looking for here, right? So in my career path, in my relationships, in my family life, and whatever it is, right? It's like, this is a time to go inwards and say, like, where am I at now currently? Let me take stock of what's actually happening in my life. Do I like the trajectory that I'm on? Do I want to shift where that goes? Is there something that I would do differently? So this is really about just kind of asking yourself those big picture questions, checking in with yourself now, and then seeing where you want to go going forward, okay? So that's the overall vibe, Scorpio, for what we've got coming on for this month. I'm going to do this in a 3-parter way, which is actually the spread that I'm going to be doing for everyone. I'm trying to like not have this go 2.5 hours-ish the way that it normally goes. So I'll be trying to speed through these as much as possible, but I want to make sure that you guys have the information. So what we have actually first showing up at the beginning of the month is something that requires your courage and your strength. You're being called to either face things that require you to tap into your own inner courage and strength, or this is about really examining like that you're on the precipice of needing to tap into that for a reason, for a particular purpose. The thing about the strength card is that there is, and I actually want to show that to you guys so that you can see it more clearly. You see that it's so cool, it's such a cool deck, that the Lucha Libre guy is fighting the dragon kind of guy right there. So normally we see a maiden with the lion, and it's meant to represent our inner beasts, our inner shadows that we are integrating, that we are working with. And when we no longer run away from, when we turn and face the what's in the shadows, which I think is really appropriate for the scorpionic energy, right? Scorpionic energy is like into the depths and like about the hidden knowledge and sex and taboo and like, you know, what's in the shadows, right? All of these different things. So if you have a lot of scorpionic energy that is going on in your chart, you're someone who's probably accustomed to actually needing to face the stuff. Or when you're in your shadow aspect, you could be someone who is like, I don't want to face this at all. I'm not looking in there. I'm not looking into the deep waters. So depending on where you're at, right? The strength card can be about really facing and integrating the shadowy kind of aspects of ourselves or what we're doing or not doing in our lives. And so once we actually say, okay, I'm going to face this, I'm going to integrate this, I'm going to bring this into my life, then we have this experience where our shadows become our strength. They become integrated in a way where we get to utilize them for the power that they have. And there's so much more that I could say about that, but I want to like keep this as succinct as possible. So that's what I'm going to say about that. Okay. Oh, hey, how's it going? Nice to see you here. Welcome. So, all right. Distractions. So we're going to move into the middle of the month, Scorpio. And what we're taking a look at here is we have the 6 of Cups. So 6 of Cups, I feel like you're actually moving into a space where you're looking at some stuff that's nostalgic, right? You're kind of like, almost, actually, I really like this image, right? You're standing kind of at the bow, you know, the head of the boat. Is that the bow? I think it is. And you're just kind of like in the space of remembering all of these beautiful treasures that you have experienced and had over the course of your life or over the course of like recent weeks or months, right? It's just kind of like being in this state of like recapitulation, right? So you're in a state of recapitulation and feeling and remembering like what actually feels good about, gosh, we've gone through some hard times, but what feels good about your recent life experiences. This can also be, now we're about to, like I said, move into eclipse season, and it, like in the weeks prior, in a couple weeks prior, it actually starts to kind of give us an idea of like what might be showing up. This might be a next showing up into your life, somebody from your past. Or it could be somebody from your past that's showing up that is actually someone that you want to be interacting with. Maybe they remind you of the kind of love partner that you want to have. Maybe they are there to like, you guys are going to collaborate and create some kind of project together. The point is that there is either like this joining together of 2 energies that were from the past that feel beneficial and that can move projects forward, that can move your relationship life forward, all of these different things. The card is dead on. Oh, nice. Awesome. I'm glad that it's resonating. It's always lovely to hear that, especially in a collective reading. One-to-one readings are so like dead on all the time, but with collective readings, you're just like, well, I hope this resonates for some of you out there. I know it does for some, but you know. So essentially, like that's what's coming into the middle of the month. Now, right after the middle of the month, shortly before the end of the month, we're hitting into the eclipse, right? there's a whole lot to say about eclipses. I won't get into too long of anything here because I want to make sure that we stay on track. But we have the yes, Eight of Pentacles. I want to make sure I was doing that right. So we have the Eight of Pentacles here. So Eight of Pentacles, right? So that you can kind of see the imagery here. I am using a Day of the Dead deck, even though I know Day of the Dead isn't until the November 1st and 2nd, but I just feel like it's in the season, so we're going to use it. The Eight of Pentacles has more to do with honing your craft. It's not necessarily going back to the drawing board. So this isn't like a retrograde. This is more like you are needing to take the time to really focus on honing your skills, honing your craft. If you are in an apprenticeship, if you are an intern, it's kind of that type of vibe. If you already are in the work that you're doing, or let's say that you're wanting to like maybe start a business, go down a certain path, what needs to happen here is like there's more to really be like worked on. You need to like direct your focus and not be so distracted by things or other people that show up in your life, and really go inward, as we were talking about with this particular card here at the very beginning. Go inward and see like what makes sense for you. Like, what do you really want? What is the trajectory that you're on? Like, where are you actually going? And what makes sense for that? And then with that, decide on what skills need to be honed, on what things, projects and things need to be focused on. Direct your energy and attention and your life force into creating these things. So you just like need a little bit more time in the oven, but it doesn't mean that you can't take action. It just means that you really need to be focused on the things that you're wanting to grow in your life. So let's say that this is a relationship reading for some of you, and you're really like, that's what's top of mind and heart for you. If you're looking at relationships, this would be about honing your relationship skills then, honing your communication skills, your skills with empathy, your skills with compassion, your skills with like conflict resolution, which by the way, you know, Nonviolent Communication is a really great book for that in case you're wondering. So these are the things that you want to like, so apply it as it applies to your life, because it is a, you know, broad reading, right? So stronger than resonate. Interesting. Really cool. Yeah, so I'm glad that is resonating. I feel like I want to pull one more card for you guys. Which deck do I want to use? I'm still feeling this deck, actually. Sometimes I just favor a particular deck, but let's take a look at I want to get an extra card for you around spiritual advice. So like, what are your guides or whoever it is that you actually believe in? I have no... You know, I would never dare to tell people how to believe about what they believe. So however it is you believe, if it's the universe or whatever it is, what they're actually saying for you. And I'm feeling two different cards here. Interesting. You guys saw me shuffle. So interesting that some of the stuff that was coming up for like the Gemini right before is actually showing up. So first of all, we have the Ace of Swords. So Ace of Swords, really amazing card. Any of the ace cards in the deck are really beautiful because they're kind of like divinely orchestrated. So there is like with this particular card is really about getting, it's really about getting clarity. And you can see like there's the piercing of the light through the clouds. So it's coming into a space of clarity. Usually with this particular card, you're piercing through like the crown chakra. It's coming through and you're actually moving through any kind of murkiness or confusion that's actually happening. So the ability to do that is there. And where that actually comes from is not just like being in a necessarily like logical or cerebral space. This is actually coming from a place where you are, how would I put this? How would I put this? Okay, I would put this together with because that's the image that I got. So I put this together with the Hermit that we had show up at the very beginning for the overall. It's again back to these big picture questions. You need to get clarity on what is true for you, because like the swords are about personal truth. It's about what is so for you. So where you're being guided to needs to be based on what is true for you currently. Now we know that that's a saying, personal truth. I use it because it's in our lexicon and it describes something very easily and succinctly. However, truth, ultimate truth is unchanging. But when we're talking about what is personally so for us, that shifts. And what was so for you a month, 3 months ago, not necessarily what's so now. And you need to be asking yourself the questions about how you want to be guided forward. How are you staying true to yourself? Oh, that's the one that rings true. How are you staying true to yourself, right? So also, you need to be able to flow with the changes that happen. Whatever you've actually acquired at this point in your life, whatever you have gained stability with, like however you have gained stability, there is this kind of like holding fast to that and gripping it too tightly in a way that's kind of miserly that you need to watch out for. So this is again where I'm saying it's like it came in with the Geminis. You want to make sure that you're not like grasping and holding on to this kind of level of security. Some things especially in an eclipse season, the soil gets disturbed, right? Like it's almost like there's a mini earthquake. Things get shaken up, right? Things get loosened that you wanted to like have tied down. So being aware that there might be changes coming forward that are not necessarily like what you prefer, just being aware of that, right? And just knowing if you stay with what's so, and communicate clearly. This is the other thing that's really coming through for some of you out there that need to hear this. Your communication needs to be more on point. And this is not about sharp communication, because it's how you wield your weapon, right? Are you wielding your sword just kind of like haphazardly and without any skill and just kind of hacking and chopping away? Or are you using it with precision? Right? And I think that makes all the difference in the world. So for some of you, boning up on your skills for communication could be a good idea, but I would say overall, like communicating what's so for you and to do it in a way where you're consciously communicating. Okay? So that's what I have for you, Scorpio. So we are done with Scorpio. Glad that you guys are in here. I love when I get like, people putting their signs into the chat. So I will give it a second because I know there's a lag time on these lives. And so we have gone through Gemini, we have gone through Scorpio. So if nobody puts anything in the chat, oh, you're welcome. You're so welcome. Thank you for hanging out. I appreciate it. I love hanging out with people. So I don't know how you found me, but I'm happy you're here. So thanks. Otherwise, I will just start to go through the signs in order. Okay, let's do Aries. We're going for Aries next. All right. Okay. Aries. Happy to see you here. Oh, from Clubhouse. Right on. All right. So good to have you here from Clubhouse. I'm sorry if I didn't recognize your name. Maybe I need to see a picture. Sometimes I need to see a picture. So awesome. I'm glad to see some Clubhouse peeps here. It's been a minute. All right, Aries. Let's get a sense of what's actually happening in the overall vibe of the month for my Aries. Aries, sun, moon, or rising. Here we go. Well, there's some moving forward, moving on kind of energy. We'll come back around to that. So I'm feeling like interesting. All right, so let's check out how things are showing up in the beginning of the month, towards the center before we get into the eclipse. Oh, okay. The times they are a-changin', and when we're near eclipse season, what's going on? Okay. All right, so this is for Aries, sun, moon, or rising. Again, I recommend that you watch your sun or rising first before watching your moon if you feel like you need to. So, let's see. Oh, cool. Awesome. Yes, happy to see you too. Awesome. It's been a minute, right? Not too long, but it's been a minute. All right. Okay. So, Aries. I have some very close Aries friends in my life. So, let's talk about this, Aries. We've got, for the overall vibe of the month, we've got the Six of Swords, right? Pay attention to the imagery, you guys, when you guys are watching this, because I do feel like sometimes that plays a part. There's only so much that I can read for you, and so you want to be mindful of anything that really stands out for you. Okay, so Aries. Six of Swords. is definitely about kind of like moving on to greener pastures. I'm going to move on, I'm going to move forward, I'm traversing a new path. When we're dealing with the swords, you might have heard me say this if you've already been in the room, but the swords have to do with our beliefs, our mind, our communication, our thoughts, our logic, our personal truth, right? Like what is us being true to ourselves about, right? So that's what we're actually dealing with. Now, we're using, though, the Six of Swords, we're using all of those air spaces to move forward into a new place, and we're traversing some emotional waters. So needing to, like, what I'm actually kind of having coming through more for this showing up than I was talking about earlier is like really utilizing your cerebral gifts and skills to help you navigate sometimes messy emotional waters, sometimes sensitive emotional waters. So needing to draw upon those skills, those strengths to help you move across some emotional waters that you're moving across and moving forward. Sometimes people will talk about the Six of Swords as being something that is like you moving away from something or someone and moving into a new direction. And yes, it can be that way, and it can be about the greener pastures on the other side, but this can also be about like you're just moving forward in a new direction. And it's like whoever catches the boat, and whoever doesn't catch the boat, well, they didn't catch the boat. You know, you're either on the boat or you're not. So this is definitely, I know. Yeah, ouch a little bit, right? However, right, this is not a definitive thing. And like one of the things that I like to talk about with tarot is that we are self-determined and not predetermined. This is a snapshot, an aerial snapshot of a chessboard that is already in play. All of the people and pieces that are at play on both sides, that's the energetic momentum that's happening at this point, right? Like all of these things there's an energetic momentum that's moving them forward, right? So this is what the trajectory is most likely going to look at. This is what is here and what's so. That doesn't mean that it can't shift and change in a new direction. I think that that's what some of the more popular kind of like pop tarot, TikTok tarot kind of like people, not to say that everyone on TikTok is doing tarot is not great. I'm sure that there's some great ones, but I'm just saying like that clickbaity kind of like, oh, this is what it is. It's like, no, we are self-determined, not predetermined. This might be the momentum and the energy that's there, but that doesn't mean it can't shift. But should it? Is the question that I think we need to ask ourselves when we're considering, am I going to step to the right or the left of the train track, right? And seeing what's coming down the line. So something to ask yourself is about that. But it is very much like that. It is not necessarily that you're leaving people behind or anything like that, but it is saying like, I'm going to go check out what's over there. This is actually better for my mental and emotional well-being, is to go in this direction. I'm done with this back here, the way that it looked and the way that it felt and the way that it was, right? So whatever was there, it's like, okay, this is better to go in this direction. So I'm going to go in this direction. I'm going to traverse the emotional waters. I'm going to get to this other place. And whoever makes it onto the boat, great. And whoever doesn't, life. So, all right, let's get into the rest of the month. All right, Aries. So let's see. Yeah, sometimes that can be true. Sometimes that can be true. For those of you who are watching later on, the comment was like, the more it hurts, the more true it probably is. Sometimes, right? Like not necessarily all the time. I like to be a person of possibility, but there is a time I think that is meant to consider, is this right for me overall? Is this situation, this project, this person, this friendship, is this really serving me? Now, let's get into the rest of the month because I feel like this might really illuminate things for some of you out there. So we begin the month with the Wheel of Fortune, right? The Wheel of Fortune, and let's get this really close so you guys can see that. This is a Day of the Dead deck, so please don't let the imagery, if you're just like, oh no, it's all death, the sickles. So what we're looking at with the Wheel of Fortune is like, the wheel is turning and it's going to turn no matter what we do. We can't hold on to the wheel. Like there's no holding on to one part of the wheel and hoping that it's not going to continue turning. it's going to turn. So it's more painful when you don't allow for the wheel to continue to turn. You're trying to hold on and hold it back. The amount of energy and pressure that it takes to do that. The Wheel of Fortune can actually be a turn of events that can be really beneficial, right? It's something we would never really necessarily understand or see coming. So that's the cool thing about the Wheel of Fortune. Yes, we don't know where it's going to land. It's like playing Russian roulette, right? Like you don't know if it's going to land on which thing that it's going to land on. So yeah, you could land on something that is like maybe more challenging, but it could be beneficial in the long run, or you could land on something that seems really fortuitous. It's just like luck, fortune, the fates. It's so unpredictable. There's so many things that shift and change, and like even really amazing psychics, they're only ever getting a sense of what is happening currently in the momentum, right? But that's why I was like, oh, the times they are a-changing. They are changing. Things are turning, things are moving, and things are probably going to happen in ways that are unpredictable for you. Now, again, because this is a collective reading, not an individual reading, I would say apply this to whatever is most top of mind, top of heart for you. So this could have to do with like a relationship that is romantic. It could have to do with a project that you're working on if you're collaborating with other people, right? It could have a lot to do with just like many different things. So just keep that in mind. We move into the middle of the month, and I'm going to say that right off for some of you, you need to like not really be rushing into situations. You need to take your time, slow it down a little bit, right? Don't just charge headlong and do the act first and think later kind of thing, right? Because the Knight of Wands is very much like that, very fiery, very passionate. Also, if this is about a person, for some of you out there who are watching this, if this is about an actual love interest of some kind, they could be this very here today, gone tomorrow, like a Don Juan, or like a, what would it be, femme fatale for like something else, but like very just kind of like charismatic. I'm here, I might not be here in the morning, or I'm here today, gone tomorrow, right? Like that kind of energy, but they're very charismatic and passionate and fun, and this kind of energy, and like definitely sexual, like, which is, yay. But may not be like everlasting in that way. Now, for those of you who aren't necessarily watching about something like that, and that doesn't necessarily resonate, the other way that I would read this is that as you're going through the month of October, and we're getting kind of close to like the middle of the month, that's kind of what we're looking at. The Knight of Wands, right? So just taking in that imagery, Knight of Wands. Knight of Wands is, again, like you want to slow that energy down and think first. Really survey what the terrain is, what's in front of you. Maybe like zoom back and actually get some perspective before you start making some decisions, right? So now moving into the end of the month for you, we've got, I want to make sure that I was seeing that correctly. We've got the Four of Cups, right? So Four of Cups, and again, I'll get that a little bit closer for you guys. Okay, Four of Cups. And you can kind of see like there's a vibe. There's a kind of like, I'm really focused in this one spot. If any of you have ever had this experience in life where you feel this way, it reminds me of, gosh, when something is really hard and you're just kind of like looking at the ground, and literally it's like the whole world disappears, and it's almost like tunnel vision, and this is all I see, right? The thing about the Four of Cups is that the universe is actually trying to give you other options. It's trying to give you other possibilities, and you're just like, it doesn't feel the way I want it to though. It doesn't look the way I want it to. I want it to look and feel this way. And if it's not going to look and feel this way, then I'm not even going to, I don't want it, or I'm not going to even consider it. This can also be a blind spot. Like you're getting guidance or signs or whatever, omens to move in a certain direction, to do a certain thing, or like to explore a certain possibility. And you're choosing not to do that, not to even consider it, because of like, it doesn't look and feel the way that I want it to. And so I find that this is really true with all humans, including myself, right? Like, so it's like, this is a truism that I have found, which is, hey, you know what? Oftentimes we kind of like corner ourselves into a space of believing that there are no other possibilities that are really on the table besides like the 3 that we see in front of us. And I'm saying that because this is a 4 of cups, and like there's typically in the traditional decks, there are 3 cups that this person is really focused on and looking at. And then the universe is trying to like hand them a cup, another option, and they're just like, they're blind to it and not even seeing it. So I would say that this is a time for you to like maybe consider widening your perspective, your vision. Like try to look in your periphery and see if maybe there are things that you're missing. As human beings go, I think that we tend to not see these other opportunities or consider these other possibilities because we are so like, it's more uncomfortable to try that particular opportunity or possibility, or it's going to be more challenging or hard in this way, or it's not going to have all the elements that I want. So we take a lot of things off the table when there are actually way more different like possibilities. Like, okay, yeah, maybe one of these will take longer and be a little bit harder on the road, but it's still a possibility, and it might actually be the best one that you have in terms of the ones that you're like looking at. Because let's be honest, the ones that you're like sitting here focused on, those aren't working. They're not actually panning out. Other not looking and feeling the way that you want them to. So it's time to broaden your perspective and your horizons and look elsewhere. Look at other options, right? So again, I think that's pretty applicable to like whether we're looking at career, finances, relationships that are romantic, friendships, whatever it is, projects. So what is the last thing that I want to say about that? I'm getting this is like the second time this is coming through. Sometimes for some people, this can be really about pointing out like being in a place of complacency. I'm not going to call anybody lazy per se, but what I am going to say is like you might be accustomed to things being like a certain way, like this functions, these things work, like it's in working order, this is fine, it's good enough, it works well enough. And for those of you who that resonates with, I'm going to say this is something that you need to look at and examine. Yeah, it might be working well enough, but it's not really moving you forward, is it? It's not really getting you anywhere. So this is also a time to look at that. So I feel like that's like pretty straightforward, and we've gotten some good information here for you, Aries. So, and I'm not feeling like a strong pull from any other decks for anything else. So I'm hoping that was super helpful. Again, this is collective reading, so apply it as you can, and also and just know that if you want to get more personalized readings, then my information is in the link in my bio to book that, or you can DM me too. All right, so we've gone through Aries, we've gone through Gemini, we've gone through Scorpio. You guys are welcome to put the next sign that you want me to read in the chat. Otherwise, I'll just start going in order of my list. I have to have a list so that I don't forget people, because I can. So otherwise we're going to move into Taurus. So I'm going to give it a second because I know that there is a time delay with these things. Okay. So I'm not seeing anything pop up. Okay. All right. So we're moving into Taurus. And it's interesting, like the way that it's kind of come in for this new format that I'm doing while I'm in my course for psychological astrology. I've noticed that, it's kind of, there's a trickle in, and then people go out and they come back in, so it's like that. So if you pop in and you just happen to catch this, you're welcome to let me know. Yeah, that feels like the one. Oh, interesting. Okay. All right, Taurus. We're doing Taurus, Sun, Moon, or Rising. So, I'm feeling a different deck for you guys. I'm feeling a couple different decks for you guys. All right, so let's pull some other cards, because that's pretty interesting. You're like, what? What is it? What is she seeing? All right. Starting out with 5 of crystals. Man, this deck. Let's take a look at the middle of the month. like this needs like one of those extra shuffles. Hope that wasn't too loud for y'all. That came through. Okay, and getting 4 different decks, Taurus. What's up? All right. Also another, you guys are needing extra shuffles on my decks. I cleanse all these decks, by the way, before I do readings. All right. Let's start here. I feel like I'm still going to want to pull one more card, actually. I just don't know which deck it's going to be from. Well, Taurus, I think that things are going to lighten up towards the end of the month for you. That's how I see it going. Let's start off with the overall vibe of the month. So overall vibe of the month that we have is the Devil card. Now, I know that it gets demonized, haha, devil, demon. You know, it gets demonized when we're looking at the Devil card. The Devil card doesn't mean anything evil is on the horizon for you. I'm going to read this a couple of different ways, because if this is about career and projects and finances, then I'm going to tell you about like how that would go. And then if it's around like love interests and whatnot, I'm going to tell you how that would go. So let's start with the business aspect, right? Because it is a Capricornian card. The Devil card actually is Capricorn related, right? Not to say that Capricorns are devil, right? So, but this is Capricorn related. Hey, thank you for that. So when we're looking at this particular card, when it comes to business, finances, career path, projects, those kinds of things, I'm going to say that for some of you, this is like, you're being workaholics. You're just like really too far into like the having yourself tied to the way that it's supposed to look, overworking yourself, being kind of almost obsessed on the borderline of obsession with this. You need to take a break. You need to rest. You need to like, yes, work. Don't stop working, but you need to give yourself a break. For some of you though, like related to personal relationships, not necessarily with love relationships, I'm going to say that with the Devil card, this can actually be about the way that we relate to obligations of love or societal obligations as well. So typically with this particular card, this can be about the way that we tie ourselves, we chain ourselves to the ideas and the structures that have been laid out for us. And so we feel like I have to do this because I have an obligation to do it because I have a duty to do it because, right? And that's kind of the shadow aspect of like some of the Capricorn energy, right? Capricorns, don't worry, I love my Capricorns, but this is not about that. This is about how you can actually be maybe tying yourself to ideas that are outdated, to obligations that are like societal contracts or, you know, the unspoken contracts that we have between ourselves and other people. So just realize, examine for yourself where that might be actually happening in your life, where you might be drained by that, and make sure that you take some time to consider that maybe it doesn't need to be done that way. Maybe you want to like actually break free of that idea and see what's possible on the other side of not needing to feel like you're a slave to any kind of obligation that is there just because. That doesn't make sense to you. If it makes sense to you and it feels right to you, cool. But I would question what you feel is a duty or you feel like is an obligation. Just saying. Just saying. When it comes to love, for some of you, if you are reading this for love, this really has to do with like being overly obsessed, right? Like you need to kind of back away from this. Either that or you're experiencing a relationship that is toxic and it's not really working, right? Like this is something that is like it's draining or it's toxic or it's obsessive, or there's like addiction that is being experienced, like an addictive kind of quality. Any of you who are dealing with like substances, this could actually be showing up for that as well. It's worth looking in the mirror and considering. If it's not a problem for you, it's not. Again, this is a general read for all my Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Rising, right? So like you need to take this information and apply it to like all of the different kinds of meanings that I'm giving you for these cards. Apply it to what feels most up for you, right? So if it's love, if it's this, if it's that, whatever it is, right? Apply that. Again, personal reading in link in bio. So now at the beginning of the month, we start out with the 5 of crystals, right? So 5 of crystals. Oh, hey, I haven't seen you in forever. It's good to see you. Okay, so 5 of crystals we have showing up here. That's actually like the 5 of swords in most decks, right? So it's 5 of swords. 5 of swords has to do with like winning at any cost. Like, I'm going to win no matter what. I'm going to win at any cost, no matter what it takes. We just talked about this, okay? So it's the I'm going to win at any cost, and like people are going to walk away the losers from this situation, but it's like, to what degree are you going to actually win these battles with people, right? And like, you're walking away the victor, but like, what relationships have been destroyed? What bridges have been burned? Is it really worth it to do it that way? For some of you, this will be like, if you are dealing with a legal matter, if you happen to be dealing with a legal matter, you might want to go back and really review, especially since we just today are coming out of a Mercury retrograde and it's still like the lingering effects happen for at least a little bit longer. You might want to go back and like really pour over the details and make sure that you're really looking at everything. Otherwise, you can walk away and lose in the legal battle. So if this has to do with the legal battle, for some of you out there, obviously this isn't going to apply to everybody. Not everyone's going through some kind of legal situation. I'm really going to recommend that, right? Pay attention to that. Now, moving on into like the middle of the month. So this is interesting. I think like it's really starts to take a turn. And I think that for some of you Taurians out there, this eclipse season that we're moving into is not necessarily going to be so bad. You move from this space, the 2 cards that we were just talking about, into a more creative space, a more abundant space, right? So here we have the Empress, right? The Empress energy is artistic. It is pregnant and full of life. It is all about the senses, about what feels good. Very Taurian, like very, very Taurus Venus energy. Like, what is aesthetically pleasing to me? Like, what feels good? What good yummy food? What good things can I drink? Like, all of the different senses are being engaged, right? What's creative? This is also about abundance and like birthing something new into the experience. And I think for some of you, this is project related, mainly because we have the Ace of Pentacles showing up towards the end of the month. So far we've been seeing with the other signs that kind of towards the eclipse, it's looking a little bit rough, you know, like harder kind of lessons to look at. But with you, we have like this beautiful opportunity and solution that's being offered. Something new is being born into the world. We just had the Empress is like about that kind of pregnancy. And then we have like this newness that's being birthed into the world. Now, for some of you, this is very literal. For some of you, this is about actual pregnancy and the birth happening. That's happening. Because these are very aligned for that. For the rest of you, this is like, we're looking at the earth quality. So we are looking at the world of the tangible. We're looking at projects, finances, property, right? Land, things that are in this tangible world, things that are foundational, right? Those kinds of qualities. And there are some new opportunities that are being offered, but the gestating period is like kind of happening in the middle of the month. And there is this kind of like, okay, now things are starting to come to fruition. They're not fully like come to pass, right? Like, it's just like things are starting to manifest into the, I know manifest can be like such a weird word now because it's so overused, but like, it is the appropriate word for this. Things can be brought into this world. They can materialize. They can manifest into this world, right? So that's what we actually have showing up for you towards the end of the month. I thought I was going to want to pull another card for you guys. Actually, no, I do. I do want to pull just to get a little extra guidance on like what would be helpful as you guys are navigating this particular month. And we have 2 cards here. Interesting. Oh. So, okay. So for some of you, it's interesting advice, right? We have the Six of Swords and the Five of Wands. The Five of Wands can be very much about like this kind of like the desires that are present between yourself and other people, or yourself and one other person. There's like conflicting desires. These can be foundational like aspects of who you are as people, right? Like just very functional pieces that are not really jiving and melding together. This can be about, all right, I have no idea why that ended. So I hope whoever was watching for that is still here. So what I was saying is that this can also be about your what you want to create in this world and your desires being out of sync, like not being aligned, right? And so that's what really the Five of Wands is really about, right? But then we also have, and so here, when we're looking at advice that's coming through from your guides, it's like, okay, let's make sure that what is here is actually what's aligned, right? So, hey, Ashley. Hey, honey. So what we're looking at is just like, okay, well, what is actually aligned for me? Like, what are my desires? And let me stay true to what my desires are, what it is that I want to create. And it's also like the Five of Wands, I find, is like more of like a sparring match. It's not as harsh and as intense as the Five of Swords, right? Five of Swords is like, all right, I'm going to win at any cost, and there's like a sharpness to it. But the Five of Wands is more like you're like with a sparring partner. There's some room to actually work with. You might be able to come to some kind of compromise, but you still need to know for yourself like what it is that you desire, what you want to create, and what's so for you, right? And then we come into the Six of Swords. So as I was talking about earlier in one of the previous ones, readings that we've done so far, we're looking at the Six of Swords, and it's like, okay, you're definitely wanting to engage your logical and cerebral self, like the gifts that come from being in that realm, right? Versus like mind versus heart, and know that you are traversing the emotional waters to get to the other side of something, to move away from the way that things were into a new state of being, into a new place, right? Going to the greener pastures, or going to another island, some other kind of land, right? Some other foundational piece, some other thing to build, some other tangible piece, right? That you're moving into is what we're doing. So you want to be like aware that there might be a feeling of leaving certain people or projects behind, especially with what's coming up around the Five of Crystals and the Five of Wands. But what we do see is that there is this kind of very like pregnant period in the beginning, this gestation that is, or in the middle, that's happening. And then there are some things that are coming to fruition. There definitely is like some kind of being chained to like either obligations or duty or people, and that these are either not healthy, you know, like either the habits themselves, the obligations themselves are no longer serving and not healthy, and they're draining for you, or the people and the relationships themselves that we're looking at here are not in alignment, that they are actually kind of maybe either toxic or obsessive, or just not really like kind of not really serving you, right? So there's a lot for you guys to examine here. I'm just going to say that, Taurus, like there's a lot to examine here. So I hope that that's helpful. You know, and that it helps to guide you through, again, like some of the spiritual advice that you're really getting is to remember to like be very aware of your needs, your desires, your wants, and allow yourself to move forward, right? Like that's a big part of the Six of Swords, is like you're moving forward. You're moving away from certain ideas and ways of being and feeling, like certain ideas, certain ways of thinking, certain ways of feeling, and you're moving into what you perceive at least as a better place. And they're basically giving you the green light and saying, yes, go forth into these better spaces, right? So again, I hope that that's helpful. So we have gone through Taurus now for my sun, moon, and rising Taurians, right? So, let's see. We have gone through, let's take a look here. So we've gone through Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and Scorpio. So you're welcome to put the next sign that you want me to read for the month of October into the chat. So if you want me to read your sign or the sign of someone that you are, like maybe a family member or a friend or lover, whoever, you're welcome to put that in the chat. I know there's kind of a delay, so I like to give a little bit of time for that. But otherwise, I'll just start moving through my list because I have a list to make sure I don't forget anyone. So I'll start doing that. So if nobody puts anything in the chat, I will start with Cancer next. For Cancer, Sun, Rising, or Moon. And in the meantime, I'm just going to take a sip of my... All right, Capricorns. Let's do it. All right, Capricorn. So here we go. Capricorns, I'm feeling starting with this deck again. Interesting. Okay. So Capricorns, this is a collective reading for my Capricorns Sun, Rising sign, or Moon sign. We're going to go with those two because I actually felt one of them pop up and the other one turned over. So we're going to go with that. I'm shedding. Here we go. All right, Capricorn, it seems to me that there are some things that you can... Virgo next. Yes, I will definitely do Virgo next. Let me put that in for Virgo. There we go. All right. All right, Capricorn, it seems like there's some emotional waters to traverse. There's some things that are kind of hidden in the shadows, and you're needing to like not only bring them to light, but actually speak your truth about it and speak it directly, clearly, and cleanly. So we'll get into that, but like just for the moment, because I want to pull other cards, just for the moment so that you can take a look at what we have here. We've got the Moon card and we've got the Queen of Swords. So much to say about this, but I'm just going to say that's the overall vibe for it at the moment, okay? So... I actually want to know what some of this shadowy stuff is about. So let's find out. Let's find out, shall we? Atonement. That's interesting. We might get a clarifier on that. So let's also pull what's happening for... That actually doesn't feel so. Let's go. Let's go. It keeps wanting to throw out those two. All right, that's what's happening. So at the beginning of the month, we have the Two of Pentacles and we have the Ace of Pentacles. So I am going to say that there's definitely a vibe for some of you Capricorns out there that are dealing either with like relationships, some serious relationship vibe, because it's like soulmate level vibe, or some of you Capricorns out there are dealing with like a business partnership, somebody very close to you, right? Like a really, really close connection. So... And obviously there's some stuff that needs to seriously get communicated. I'm going to say that some of you, it has to do with opportunity or being opportunistic, but let's find out what else is happening. In the middle of the month, it looks like things are going to be turning and changing. When we get closer to eclipse time, no, it's not quite there. All right. Yeah. Okay. When we get closer to eclipse time, we're looking at the Ten of Wands. Shit gets really heavy. Things look really heavy, Capricorn. They really do. And I feel like it's centered around this connection. This Two of Pentacles connection, right? Or Two of Cups, I'm sorry. Oh, no, wait. It's Two of Pentacles. My apologies. Let's change that. I still feel like it is centered around this, but I do feel like it's a connection with somebody. Two of Pentacles having to do... I was thinking Two of Cups, sorry. But it's probably still relevant. It still had me looking at like the twos. So Two of Pentacles actually has to do a lot with like this... it's like a this or that. Like I'm weighing out my options. I'm weighing out the solutions or the opportunities or the choices. Now those opportunities can be with people, they can be with projects. You know, it definitely can have to do with like the work-life balance thing. But there's this always like this in the Two of Pentacles, there's this typical juggling of different kind of energy, right? Vacillating with like the choice. I'm over here, I'm over there, I'm over here, I'm over there, I'm over here, I'm over there, right? So there's some kind of like, I'm trying to figure out how these different pieces work together in my life. Either this person, how that gets integrated into my life, how that works, how to balance like work life, how to balance these seemingly disparate pieces of my life together into one space, right? So that like is the beginning of the month. Now we have that showing up with the Ace of Pentacles, right? So I want to give you guys the imagery because I think it's really important to actually be able to take a look at that. Hey Nadia, welcome. So just so you know, we're doing October readings for all the different zodiac signs. So you are welcome to throw your sign or whatever sign you want me to read in the chat. So then we have let's see if we can get the glare off of that. We have the Ace of Pentacles. Ace of Pentacles has to do with that opportunity. Look at the gold in the mouth. I actually kind of really like the imagery that they have for this particular deck, right? So we're looking at what opportunities are actually present, you know? And I think with you weighing it out, how do I want to put this? I think that there are some things that you are weighing out that have been maybe feeling pretty heavy, and it's not looking like it's going to let up before the end of the month unless you kind of are really doing some deep examination. And I think even then it's probably going to feel like, okay, how do I actually make this work? Don't fret, like just because we go through, you know, a period of like, you know, 3 to 4 weeks that feel challenging for us for some reason, that doesn't mean that things will never lighten up again. They always will. It's just that there's some hard choices to consider, some opportunities that are feeling heavy to weigh out. There's something in the middle of the month that actually really informs this kind of balancing or this opportunity weighing out that you're doing, because what we have showing up is the Wheel of Fortune, right? So Wheel of Fortune, if you were here earlier in the room, I was talking about how this has to do with the fates, right? You know, like the wheel turns no matter what we do. Change is constant. That is this card. The Wheel of Fortune is about how change is a consistent part of our reality. There's no amount of holding on to or trying to stop or pause or hold into a certain place that's going to actually change the situation or stop something from happening. Sometimes you have to let the wheel, no matter what, the wheel's going to turn, but you have to like let go and allow the wheel to turn, allow it to do its thing, and see where the chips land. And sometimes it lands, it looks really like, oh, I don't want this to change. This feels really unstable. I don't like this, right? You're coming from earth kind of quality into this vibe. And like the thing is that it can feel really intense. It can feel really scary, but it can land on something that's better than you actually had anticipated before. Now, maybe sometimes if you believe in fate, right, the moving of pieces on the chessboard might be set up in such a way where you're like, oh, that's it. This is looking like game over. And then suddenly 1 or 2 possibilities open up from 1 or 2 moves that are happening from the opposite side. And then suddenly you're able to kind of like end up in a better spot than you were. So sometimes when the wheel turns and fates show up the way that they do, it looks like it's not going to turn out so well, but it's because it needed to be like, we needed to be put into these certain spaces and these places in order for us to like look at life differently, to have a different perspective, to be open to something new. Or we needed to be there because we needed to be able to be lined up and aligned to meet certain other people that would benefit our projects, or that would be a love interest, or any of these kinds of things. So these are the things that you want to just like consider as you're going through the month, because let's be really honest, Capricorn, things are looking a little bit tough at the moment, right? And I'm gonna pull something else. Like, I don't like to leave people in a space of like, doom and gloom. It's not doom and gloom. Just like know that this is, again, this is a collective reading, so keep that in mind. This is not gonna apply to every Capricorn, Sun, Moon, or Rising out there. If you want to get a personalized reading, the link's in my bio for that, but just keep that in mind, right? Here, though, I want to leave you with something that's like gonna be good, because like here we have at the end of the month, and this is not it. We're getting there. It's not it. I was just saying that to reassure you. We're not gonna like let it end there. So we've got the 10 of Wands, and the 10 of Wands, it can be transformative because of the fact that it's like, you realize the weight that you have been carrying on your back. You've got like, usually it's a person that is carrying 10 staves on their back, and like they're kind of bent over, like this is such heavy weight. So sometimes when you feel like our back is about to be broken, it's like the straw that's breaking the camel's back. It releases us from the experience that we're in. It allows us to finally make decisions and to move forward in ways that we wouldn't have anticipated previously. So this is really important to consider, is that you might feel the weight of this, like the gravity of this, right? And it might be the catalyst that has you go, fuck this. I'm going to drop some of this weight. I don't need to carry all of this. What is essential for me to carry? Like, what is essential for me to take with me on this path going forward into November, right? That's actually one of the things that the eclipses do. The eclipses are really great for this. The eclipses eclipse out people or projects or things that were like either on the verge of going out anyways, or it wasn't really meant for us. It was like, this is a very faded kind of time. And you won't hear me talk about things like this very often, because I only sort of sometimes believe that sometimes we're affected by fates. Like, I think sometimes we are sometimes predetermined, but most of the time we are self-determined, right? So I go back and forth between these spaces of like feeling that way, where it's like, is this a fated thing? Do I really believe that it is? But I think sometimes there are these kinds of experiences, whatever the overarching design of things is for us in this life that we call life, whatever it is, if there's another intelligence, whatever. But this is an experience that I feel is really coming through for the month of October, right around the time of the eclipse, which I think is, if I'm really correct, I should have checked it before I hopped on here, because I haven't actually had a chance to look at the astrology for this month, but I believe it's on the 25th. So that's just something to keep in mind, just something to look at, is that this may be the catalyst that has you actually say, okay, that's it. I'm done with this. I'm no longer going to participate in this. This is too much for me. This is not, I don't need to carry this. It's holding me back. I want to go in this other direction. So I'm going to go in this other direction. And then you do. So that's just something to consider about the end of this month. The eclipses can tend to do that. Like, okay, this is too much weight. We're getting rid of this, right? That all said, at the beginning, we were looking at what the overall vibe of the month has to do with. Like, what is the theme of this month for you, Capricorn? And what we had show up was the moon and the Queen of Swords, right? Now, the moon has very much, let's actually come to just like the moon so you can kind of check it out. I actually really like this deck's version of the moon, even though it doesn't have a lot of the typical symbology, but I really do like it. So the moon has to do with like these deep, you would imagine, very like emotional waters, these deep spaces within ourselves, the things that perhaps have been outside of our conscious mind, and they might feel a little bit below the surface, like a little bit more like in the depth of the waters, right? Now, when you go into the deep waters, you start to lose light as you go further and further down. It becomes harder to discern what's there. And it can feel really threatening, right? You think about like if you were to dive into the abyss of the ocean, and you're just like, or you're like the shelf drops off and there's just darkness, right? Like my dad actually has a story about having had that happen. And there you are, it's like every part of your senses and your survival mechanisms are like, get the fuck out of here, this is not safe, right? And that can feel that way when we're examining what is beneath the surface for us, mentally, emotionally, in those, things that get swept under the rug kind of places within ourselves. And so there are things that need to be brought to light, that need to actually be addressed. Things that I would gather for a couple of you that felt like I could feel it in my mouth, almost like there was like a ball of energy in my mouth that wanted to like come out, almost like a breathing dragon. It's like this thing that needs to be expressed, that needs to also be dealt with, that needs to be like felt, things you've been holding back, things that you have not been addressing. And those things have to do, for some of you, have to do with atonement. And that's not necessarily you having to atone for something, but perhaps you feel like there are people who are close to you, maybe a romantic relationship, maybe a business partner, but somebody needing to atone like for what they've done, right? However, this card looks remarkably similar to the Ten of Swords in the tarot deck. And so that has me actually thinking about how this particular card can be about patterns that are ending, things that have already ended, things that you need to just let go of, like release them, let them go, let them be done, right? Forgive yourself for what there is to forgive. Write a letter to people that you never send. Do the things that need to be done so that you can feel like, okay, I'm done with this energy. Create closure where there needs to be closure, and keep in mind that sometimes forcing closure with other people who aren't ready for it or available for it is more damaging. So really keep that in mind. Examine for yourself what needs to be dealt with internally and where you actually should, you know, consider drawing other people in. But if you don't need to, and if it's not actually beneficial or helpful, then, you know, handle this in-house, right? But there are things that are there in the deep that are like being held onto, old pains, old things, either that you've done or other people have done, and it's just time to let it go. It's just time to be done. Like, just, it doesn't even necessarily mean that the person needs to be booted out of your life if this is about another person. It's just about creating closure for the pain that was there, and whatever was past is past, whatever is done. Let that shit go. Be done with it, because if this person is continuing to be a part of your life, then it can't be in the way that it has been. It can't be with you holding on to these feelings and these grudges or these dark things, right? If it was you, if it was them, whatever it is. So for some of you that will really resonate, and for some of you, okay, different. But like, whatever that is, it can't go forward in the form that it's been. There has to be a shift and change. And sometimes the only way for that to happen is for us to completely create closure and let that shit go. So I'm going to say that. The other thing about this, though, that came along with the moon card, right, was is the Queen of Swords. So we have the Queen of Swords showing up, and she is direct. She has gone through a lot of shit, and she has risen above the murky cloudiness and into clearer skies. She has, what is this? Oh, super resonating with you. I'm so stoked. Hey, Mr. Want, it's been a minute. Glad to see you. So, yeah, so this is really about like rising into a space of clarity. Remember the lessons that you have learned that have brought you to this point, and recognize for yourself, like, part of what's there in the swords, right? We've talked about this earlier today. Part of what's there in the swords is staying true to yourself, staying true to what's so for you. And that what's so for you can change, but right now, what's true for you now in this month of October, stay true to yourself. Be aware and clear about what's true for you and what needs to be dealt with, and then communicate it, and communicate it clearly. Now, here's the thing about the Queen of Swords, and she kind of gets like this vibe of like queen bitch sometimes, because she can be like really pointed, really sharp, really fucking direct. So if need be, if it needs to happen in a way that is really direct and sharp and precise, then okay, I defer to your judgment. How could I not, right? It's not my job to tell you how to do it. I will say, as consciously as possible, wield your weapon wisely, wield your words wisely. Know that while we're not responsible for other people's emotions and what their experiences, we have an impact, and so we can be responsible to the best of our ability for how we impact other people's lives, right? So just try to keep that in mind to the best of your ability while you go expressing your truth. This is really about expressing your truth, right? Oh, I'm super stoked to know that that resonates for you too, honey. Thank you. Yeah, so just speak what's there to speak. Stay true to yourself. And, you know, if you need to be super direct and cut through the shit, then that's what it's time for, right? So that's what I have for you, Capricorn. I'm glad to see that a couple of you here feel like that resonates for you. That's for Sun, Moon, or Rising. And then we are moving next into, I believe, Virgo, if I have that correct. Yes, we are moving into Virgo. All right, so just for anybody who is here, so that you guys know, we are doing the October readings for all of the different zodiac signs. We have so far gone through Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Scorpio, Capricorn. So we have Cancer, Leo, Virgo, which we're about to do right now, Libra, Sagittarius, Aquarius, and Pisces. All right, so you're free to throw your sign, the next sign, into the chat. In the meantime, I'm going to get right into Virgo. So let's try not to have these go super long. I have a tendency to start to like blah 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 blah. That's part of my mercurial placements in my chart. It's part of where Mercury is in my chart and what's going on with that. Okay, interesting. Some new beginnings happening here. Stressed out about that though. Oh, it looks like it's gonna take a turn though, in a good way. In a good way. So, all right, Virgo. So we start off with the energy for the overall like energy of the month, which is the Page of Wands, right? So, hey, honey, how are you? Crystals, good to see you here. So we start off with, oh, you know what's funny is I just started with Virgo, just right now. So Virgo, we have like starting off at the beginning of the month, or for the overall feeling of the month, sorry. The theme of this is the Page of Wands. Now, Page of Wands, like all the pages, are very youthful energy. So we're talking about idealistic kind of energy, especially when it comes to fire, right? Like fire energy is very like bright and can tend to be like action oriented, but also very like full of possibility, full of like creativity and creation. Like that's a lot of the energy that we can see inside of like the fire element, right? And that's what the wands are. The wands are this kind of fire element. So there is this like curiosity and this exploration that I'm seeing that is kind of coloring the month of October for you. So we're going to take a look here at where we are in the beginning of the month, where things are kind of in the middle, just before we start to get into the eclipse, and then where things are at the eclipse. Now, I will say, you guys are the second sign that I'm seeing like a decent card for around the eclipse, so I'm really liking this so far, so let's actually get into it. Oh, you said I know. Okay, cool. Yeah, there's a lag in this, so I think when I saw you pop up, I didn't know that you had actually heard me say Virgo. So what we're looking at the very beginning of the month, which I really love this deck, gosh, is the World card. So World card, when we're looking at the World card, it's like, okay, you've gone on the hero's journey and you're coming to the completion of one of your journeys, right? We're always on a next journey and a next journey and a next journey, right? So you finished one and now you're off on the next adventure. You're off on the next mission or journey, however it makes sense to you. But we start with the Fool card and we end at the World card. So there's this integration process that happens within, like, you've gone through everything that you've gone through. Now you're at this point at the very end of the major arcana. The world is open in what's possible for you, right? You've gone from not only the Fool and the Magician, but you are now like integrated in this way where you have learned to wield certain kinds of like magic for yourself, or learn to wield skills for yourself in the world, learn to wield your power in the world in a different way. Basically have learned to create a different kind of world for yourself, and you are now starting anew and going into a new space and going into another level, right? So can be really beautiful and amazing. You joined at the exact moment. So it can be really beautiful and amazing. And also, you know, there is that side of it where it's like, okay, you finished one and now you're beginning the next, and then, okay, you're back at the Fool's beginning part, and it's like, oh gosh, like what's gonna be on this path? Like what perils await me? What gifts await me? Like there's so many possibilities, but there's also so much I don't see. So that's just something to consider, that we're coming into, like today's October 2nd, so we're like coming into these places, right? With like the beginning of the month can feel that way. Now, with the middle of the month, we have you moving into the Eight of Swords. So Eight of Swords is definitely about the trappings of our own mind, like basically creating our own internal mental prisons, from the stories that we create, from the beliefs, the limiting beliefs that we hold, from the perspectives, from the assumptions, from all of these different kinds of things. And so the Eight of Swords can kind of almost like really, it's again, when we've talked about swords, if you've been here in the room with me, we're talking about beliefs, communication, ideas, thought, your cerebral processes, right? Your mind, the way you think, the way you apply logic in the world, right? Also staying true to the self, right? We were just talking about that with a sign before. So all of these things it's like basically kind of pointing to, this is a time for you to question what's actually so for you, because essentially the meaning of this particular card is that you've trapped yourself in a prison of your own making. You're the one who's boxed yourself in. You know, you get to the middle of the month and you realize that there are certain things that you have boxed yourself in with, that you have allowed yourself to believe, cornered yourself with, that are really just all in your head. It's really just about shifting perspective and shifting into a different energy. So it requires you confronting your thoughts and asking yourself a really basic, simple question. Is this true? Is this actually what's so? Is there more that's possible? Like, am I not seeing, like, how can I broaden my perspective? How can I broaden my my periphery, like look into the periphery of your world, right? So that's what we see coming into the middle of the month. Yeah, it can be a little bit anxiety inducing, you know, to be honest, but like really it's not about that. It's really about you just like saying, I need to question whether what I believe is so is what's really so. Whether what I'm seeing and experiencing in front of me is what's really true. Whether the limitations that I perceive are really there, or is that me trapping myself into something, right? So whether, and again, this is a general reading, so you want to apply this to like whether this is about projects, career, people, a relationship, whatever it is, right? So apply this as it applies. Now, we get towards the end of the month and we're looking at the, like near the eclipse. And again, I believe that's on the 25th of October, right? So, and you know, it's like, okay, we're getting to the end of the month, and here it can be a very celebratory period. We're moving into like Halloween. For a lot of people, that feels very celebratory. And then right after that, it's the Day of the Dead, which I love this deck because of that. But you move into a really beautiful card. It's the Three of Cups. And this is like community and dancing and like music and enjoying food and libations and feeling good, feeling in community, feeling like connected. So I feel like for Virgos, there is some kind of turning point that is occurring when you are experiencing this middle of the month. Like, and I feel that this beginning of the month with the World card, with this starting this new experience, is probably what is actually like triggering the space of needing to examine beliefs and what's possible and limitations and stories and assumptions and all these different things. So because of course, like the moment that you start to traverse a new path, the moment you go into creating a new world, very often it's just like, what is possible, what isn't possible, is what I think possible, am I thinking that something that is possible isn't possible, all the things, right? So we can go into a very like cerebral processing kind of place, right? So just to say, I think that the beginning of the month is what kind of brings you into this space, but I think like you know, through community, that's where you're going to experience, like through enjoying life, remembering to enjoy life. You know, I know that not everyone who is a Virgo sun, rising, or moon sign is going to have the same aspects because we're not looking at your natal chart, and this is a general reading. However, if you have like very Virgoan kind of aspects and things that are happening in your natal chart, like if you really resonate with that energy and have a lot of that energy, like sometimes need to be reminded to just let loose and let go and get back into just enjoying life and like laughing and having fun and enjoying music and good food, good wine, or if you don't drink, good mocktails, whatever it is. Have your experience that allows you to be in community, to be connected to other people that you resonate with, that you laugh with, that you have a good time with. Like, remember to let loose and have a good time. Step away from the structure and let it go for a little bit. Like, allow yourself to let go. Again, that's not going to apply for all Virgo, Sun, Rising, Moons, because it depends on what's happening in your chart. So if you are someone, though, that really resonates with some of those qualities, I would say this is a reminder to like let yourself unfurl into a really pleasurable space. So that's what I have for you, Virgo. That's what we've got going on for the month of October. So we have done Virgo now. All right. So we've done Virgo. So we are now on, I'm just going to make like little, I started to make crosses on these, and then I'm realizing that I can't differentiate like where I actually made notes. All right, you guys. So I'm going to start to go down my list in order if I don't see any other ones pop through. So let's see. I want to make sure that I didn't miss anything in case there was somebody who wanted... Okay, so we had Capricorn, Virgo, cool. All right, so you're welcome to put the next zodiac sign that you want to have be in the chat that you want me to read for yourself, for other people, for family members, whoever, and I will read that next. Otherwise, I'll just start going down my list. So I'm just going to take another sip here because I've been talking a lot. Okay, cool. I don't see anything, so I think we're going to move into Cancer. All right? So, oh, Scorpio. I actually did Scorpio, I believe. Yeah, I did Scorpio. I did Scorpio earlier. Sorry. But it will be up for replay. So as soon as it gets downloaded, it'll be up tomorrow. It won't be up tonight for sure. But because it takes a little while for it to upload and process. But when I do upload it onto YouTube, the timestamps will be there. So you can skip ahead to whichever chapters you want to skip ahead to. All right. So then I will get into Cancer then, I think. So let's get into Cancer. All right, Cancer. What is going on, Cancer? What is going on for you, Cancer? Gosh, I haven't talked to some of my Cancer peeps in a minute. I need to check in on my Cancer peeps. So, Cancer, this is for Cancer Sun, Rising, or Moon sign. And we have, first card out that we have, the overall vibe of the month is the Empress. I really like this, Cancer. The Empress is a beautiful card. Lots of like abundance and creation and being in the senses. For some of you, if you're not trying to get pregnant, be careful. Just like take extra precautions. Can be a card, you know, of extreme abundance. So I'm feeling those are the cards. So interesting. Okay. All right. So, So for some of you, this is definitely love related. For others of you, I feel like this is, you can apply it as it does to like maybe projects. There's some disappointment. There's some hard work ahead. And there's also going on to like leaving and going forth to new shores, to like traversing new waters and going to new shores. So let's come back to the Empress and let's start here. So whether it's work related or not, but I would say that there is a honing of your skills that needs to actually happen, right? So we have the Eight of Pentacles, you know, Pentacles, Earth. We're talking about the earthly qualities. We're talking about like what we create in this world, right? There's a creation aspect to what we make tangible and make manifest in this world, what we materialize, right? And so if you are someone who is looking at this for work, for projects or anything like that, this is a time for you to be aware that there's still more work that you need to do on honing your skills and really also directing your energy and paying a lot of attention to like needing to not get distracted, not allow your energy to be siphoned off into other places, and making sure that you're really focusing your time and attention on honing your skills around your craft, whatever that is, right? That all said, if this is about a relationship, then maybe consider, like, you might be wondering, well, how does that translate to relationship, like a love relationship or something like that? This could be about honing your skills as a lover, in the realms of sexuality and like actual sex and pleasure. This could also be around communication, right? So this could be a lot of different ways that this can manifest. So if you are looking to improve your relationship or your lovership with somebody or people, then this is something to actually consider and to look at. Is like you want to really be like honing your skills. So again, this is a collective reading, so you want to make sure that this applies to you as it stands. Now we come into the middle of the month, and this is right before the eclipse, and for some of you this could be very challenging. It's the Three of Swords. So the Three of Swords has to, and I'll get this a little bit closer for you guys so that you can actually see the imagery, right? I think it's actually interesting imagery. It feels like betrayal. It feels like being stabbed in the back when we're disappointed by something and we're grieving something, doesn't it? It can really feel that way. And so it's like it's a disappointment. It's a hard experience. This doesn't necessarily mean, and I know a lot of us like tarot readers will talk about it in this way. It's like, oh, it's a breakup or something like that. It's a divorce. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. It can be something like that. But it's really just about disappointment. Things like grieving. You could be grieving the relationship and the structure that it was and the way that it was. Like, just to give you an example of how this is like, it gets so blown out of proportion with, again, like the kind of more surface clickbaity like TikTok readers or whatever, is the Three of Swords isn't like, oh, it's heartbreak for sure. This can be about like some serious grief and disappointment because maybe you're in a long-term relationship and you guys had a child, and the child is creating such a different structure in your life and it's putting so much pressure, and you have to grieve the way that the relationship worked and functioned before. The things that you miss about being able to just like have your time between you to be your own and to just have sex whenever you wanted and to not have to consider that there's another entity that is there to take care of. And so there's a grieving process of like the structure that it was is no longer. And so what you were has transformed into something new together, but it's not necessarily maybe the way that you would want it to be. And so there is something to grieve there. There is some kind of disappointment. So that's something to really consider, is that it doesn't necessarily mean breakup. This could mean that the structure of a relationship or a business opportunity or a project or whatever it is was meant to, it's not meant to continue in the form that it has been. And so therefore it is disappointing. And there is a grieving process with that, you know? So there's a letting go. And that happens in eclipse seasons. We have every year there's eclipse seasons, we have them, and so these are marked points in time that feel very fated, that can usher in really significant connections and can expel certain connections from our experience or certain opportunities from our experience. Sorry, my nose is like super itchy, you guys. I'm so sorry. I feel like I have like cat fur in my nose, which is totally entirely possible. So from there we move into the end of the month, and the end of the month looks like the Six of Swords, which looks like you moving in a new direction, right? And the people who are on the boat are on the boat with you, and the people who are not are not. So sometimes that can feel really disappointing. As we were just talking about, that can feel hard. It can feel harsh. It can feel unfair. You know, there's my kitty. She likes to show up and drink my water, apparently. So, so this is really just about you moving forward. Like, you're going forward in life. Some people look at it as like leaving somebody behind, or leaving people behind, leaving family behind, leaving whatever behind, because they're not on the same growth path as you are. But this is you being on a growth path. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you are leaving them behind. It means that you are going forward on the course of your life, on your path. And that doesn't mean that you can never meet up with them again, that you can't like find your way to them again at some future point. But it does mean, sorry guys. It does mean though, that for now what's important to focus on is that you are on a path, you are on a trajectory, and that it's important that you honor what is true for yourself, have your mind and your emotions be in alignment and follow that forward, right? Go forward in a direction that feels aligned, because it actually is going to be good for you. It actually is going to provide for you. And just because someone is eclipsed out of your life for now doesn't mean that it can't come forward together 7 years from now, or a year from now, or 4 months from now, right? But the structures and the way that they are, you're being led in a certain direction, because there's certain lessons, there's certain experiences along your path that are actually beneficial and meant for you and meant for your growth. So if it feels like you're leaving people behind, it's just that you're leaving them where they are for the time being, especially when it comes to like family or significant connections. That doesn't mean that you can't go back and like connect with them, but you might be different, changed from your journey, right? So that's what I see coming forward for you, Cancer. All right, Cancer. So this is Lyra. She is letting me know that it's time for her to eat. And so unless I see a next sign in the chat, I'm going to go ahead with Leo. Hi. Can I have my space back? All right, Leo. So we're going to get into Leo and take a look at what's going on. Oh, I feel like this is some quick energy, Leo, already. I don't exactly know what's happening with I love you too. I love you too. Yeah. You're the best. Okay, so let's get on. We're going to get on with Leo. Is it because it's kitty Leo? It's kitty time? Lyra, leave those stones alone, please. Okay, this is what happens when I get distracted. All right. We are not going to get distracted. We are going to stay on point. Sorry, you guys. Yeah, she's totally being Leo right now. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. She's just chilling by the selenite and the obsidian and the citrine and the quartz. She's like, all right. So let's concentrate. Sorry, you guys. Let's give this a good shuffle. All right, Leo. Let's take a look at what's going on for you in the month of October. I'm feeling actually this bottom card here. Interesting. I really love this card, so you guys got to see this. So in this particular deck, this is the death card, Santa Muerte, the saint of death, right? But I really love the symbology in this, and we'll circle back around to this. Really, really, really love it. So that's the overall vibe of the month for you, Leo. There are some things that definitely need to be let go of, and we're in the season for it anyway, you know? So if you are in the same part of the world that I exist in, then you are going to be experiencing fall shortly here. And it is a good time, you know? It's a good time for harvesting. It's a good time for recognizing that certain things, like certain plants, will die off for a period of time and then come back in the spring, right? So we are moving through our seasons. And personally, okay, that card actually popped out while I was doing this, like really right before this. This card Santa Muerte came out, and I was like, okay, no, I need to shuffle again, and it came out again. So just note that, Leo, that we'll get into that. That's the Eight of Swords, which we just had in the reading prior, right? Making some choices at the beginning of the month. So you're having some stress, some anxiety, some like a lot of mental energy that is coming through at the beginning of the month about some of the decisions that you need to make. And by the end of the month, you're going to be like, tally ho, let's go forth. And that I think is going to require like part of some of the stress that's around that is going to be mainly because there are things or projects or people that need to be let go of, right? So let's circle back around to that and start with the beginning of the month. So at the beginning of the month, we're looking at the Eight of Swords. We were just talking about the Eight of Swords. So if you are like tuning into this particular reading, I'm just going to, you know, if you've already been here, I'm going to repeat some of the things that I've said. But the Eight of Swords is really about the trappings of our own mind, right? Our own limitations and beliefs, our assumptions, the stories that we tell ourselves, the things that we tell ourselves are possible or not possible, are really all about the card is really pointing to you are creating a prison of your own mind. You're creating the limitations that you see are in your world. Whatever it is that you are perceiving is or isn't possible, this is a time to question that, to release yourself from the idea of limitations that have come from your stories, your assumptions, your limiting beliefs, whatever those things are. So these are the things to really consider for yourself at the beginning of this month, Leo. If you want to get a little bit more information about how I was speaking about this, you can look at the reading right before this. I believe it was with Cancer. So, and I talk a little bit more about this particular card, but that's the overall vibe of it. That can cause a lot of stress. It can cause a lot of anxiety for us when we are kind of stuck in a prison of our own making that's all mental. It's all in our head. So basically, consider that a lot of the limitations you're experiencing in life, or the stressors that you actually see are there in your world, are because of your own perceptions, and that you need to question whether all of those are true. Which ones are actually so, and where is there actually more possibility? Where can you open up into more possibility than what you think is actually there, what you perceive is actually there, right? We move into the beginning of the month with the Two of Wands. So Two of Wands is very much like, this is an interesting take on the Two of Wands in this particular deck. Two of Wands, it actually reminds me more of the Two of Swords, the way that it's kind of set up. But the Two of Wands is really just about like, you are on the precipice of creating the world that you want to create for yourself, right? So this is like, the world is in front of you. You're kind of at this vantage point where you're surveying like what is actually possible in your world. And you have everything at your fingertips. You have all of the possibility to create what it is that you want, but you have to know what you want, right? The wands are about desire, right? The desire to create something, right? That fire, that passion for life. And so what is it that you're wanting to create? What are you wanting to move forward with in your life, right? And what is keeping you from that? Or what do you perceive as keeping you from that, as we were just talking about, right? We come into the end of the month near the eclipse, right? And the end of the month, we have the Knight of Wands. You know, Knight of Wands, in this particular scenario, I'm going to say this is about like, I'm rushing in. I'm putting all of my energy and charging, going forward. That's why I was like, tally-ho. It's like, you're just going full force into something. And I think that you've had to do work through the month of October to have the energy to do that. And I'm going to, like, I'm feeling this really strong connection with the ability to actually have that go forth energy, to have that burst of energy to push forward at this particular time in your life. Now, whether that's you're releasing yourself from a relationship that needed to be released, and so now you have all this energy to push forward, whether that is because of like a project that finally like gets going or whatever it is, because all of the astrology we have, like, we just came out of Mercury retrograde, but we're going to have Pluto go direct, we're going to have other things go direct, so there might be like a release of energy. But I feel very strongly this is connected to the overall vibe of the month, which is Santa Muerte, right? So she would be the death card in other tarot decks, right? And this has to do with whatever no longer serves us, whatever is no longer a part of the path. And I think we have to do this regularly throughout our lives, with our relationships, with our friendships, with our projects, with our, you know, career paths, our purpose, with everything, right? Is to pause and consider, what is in alignment with me right now? Like, you know, not to say that, you know, sometimes I've had friends who have not been in alignment with me for, I don't know, a couple years or more, and then we reconnect and it's great, right? So just because the season and the time has shifted and changed for your connection with certain people doesn't mean that it won't come back around. But for right now, projects, beliefs, ideas, people, there are a lot of these things that are just like, they need to be put to rest, put to the ground, right? Into the ground. It's done. And what's really beautiful about this, and if you've ever had this experience where, like, yes, sometimes releasing things or people can be there can be a lot of grief around that. And also, if you have probably experienced in your life at some point that when you finally let something go, you just felt like suddenly there was just like not just a sigh of relief, but like spaciousness that exists in there, in the place, right? You experience space and openness, and all of this energy really comes forth and comes through because you didn't have the energy to do these things or to move forward in life on this level before, because of the fact that you were being so held back by certain beliefs or certain people or certain projects or certain things, right? Or certain obligations or beliefs about how things had to be in the world, and that's not how it is, right? So there are certain things that need to be let go of. And like, here's the one thing that I really love too about Santa Muerte in this particular deck is look at how pregnant she is with life, right? I think it reminds us that death isn't the end. When we let something go, we give space for newness to be created, all kinds of newness to be created. It's actually really beautiful. Does it always feel beautiful? No, but neither does fucking birth, right? I mean, not that I've had children, but I've looked at it plenty of times, and let me tell you, it's not something that I really want to be a part of. It looks like a death experience. It looks like it feels like a death experience, and I want no part of it for myself personally, but I have seen what comes through on the other side, and it is newness, and it is life, and it can be really beautiful. And so it might not look the way that you want it to on the front end, but that release and that letting go allows you to have a huge womb space for whatever wants to be created in your life, to birth whatever it is that you want to have in there. And sometimes we have to let go of people or projects or things, ideas, because that shit was taking up way too much of your internal mental space and your energetic space. The moment you let that go, you just suddenly have all this energy, and you've had these experiences, right? Where you sometimes realize, you look back and go, I didn't even realize how much of my energy was being taken up by these things in my life. I had no idea that it was taking up that much. So, yeah. It gives you life force to go forth and do this. Okay? All right. So that's what I have for my Cancerian peeps. Cancer, sun, rising, or moon sign. Okay? That's what we've got for you. All right. So for anybody who is joining us, we have gone through Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That's for Leo. Sorry. My bad, you guys. So that's for Leo. We've also gone through Virgo and Scorpio and Capricorn. So we are down to Libra, Sagittarius, Aquarius, and Pisces. So you are welcome to put into the chat whichever sign you want me to read next, whether it's yours, or it's a family member, or a friend, or someone you care about, or a lover, or whatever it is. I'm happy to read out of order. I just have this list so that I make sure that I don't forget anybody, because as you can see, I was like, oh, Cancer, wait a second, that was actually Leo. So I'll give you guys a second for that. Oh, I'm almost out of my beverage. I do so love my concoctions. Okay, so if nobody else has anyone that they want to throw into the chat, I'm gonna move on to Libra next. And you know, for those of you who follow tropical astrology, happy birthday, Libra, happy birthday. Actually, today is the birthday of one of my favorite Libras. So, yeah, happy birthday, all of you tropical sign Libras, for sun signs. And for the rest of you Libras, we're looking at Libra, sun, rising, or moon sign, okay? So I usually suggest doing sun and rising before moon. Not that you can't look at moon. You can look at moon if you want. I would say that would have maybe more to do with like subconscious and like with what's happening emotionally, okay? So we're looking at the overall vibe of the month is in the 7 of Cups. Some choices that you're weighing out. Really trying to figure out like what dreams, which ones to pick out of the... Now this could be being lost in fantasy, right? In the land of fantasy and daydream and ideas as opposed to taking action. But let's see what else is coming forward for the month for you Libras. So you want to be like mindful of that. But this is not necessarily a bad card. It can be a lot about the choices that you're making and that what you're really examining, you know, and just that there are so many different possibilities that are on the table. Like, which one do you choose? How do you choose, right? So definitely seeing like there's some research that needs to be done in the space. Feeling like, yeah, okay. Moving forward in an aligned way. These are some really good cards, but I'm definitely seeing choices that are needing to be made. And I want a clarification on that card. Oh, okay. Interesting. Well, Libras. I don't think this is bad at all. So we're starting off the beginning of the month with the Page of Swords. Page of Swords, when we're looking at the Page of Swords, what we're checking out here is actually checking things out, doing the research. For those of you who are investigative, let's say, I would say this is not a time to be a stalker. Do not do that. So, but this is about doing the research and doing the investigative work on like whatever it is, whether it's a project or maybe it's a relationship and you're looking into it and you're like really investigating, you know. I'm not going to say that I haven't like, you know, checked out people's social media profiles or Googled them or something like that to kind of figure things out. I don't always do that because I'm like, I just don't, it doesn't always feel right, you know, to the degree that it feels right for you. That's up to you and your morals and values to decide, right? It's not up to me. But if it's not about a relationship, then I'm going to say that this is about doing your research and your due diligence to study, to find out, to gain knowledge, to understand. And it could be also about communicating around that specifically. So now when we move into the middle of the month, we're looking at the Chariot. So the Chariot is really about this aligned action and aligned movement forward. The Chariot is about having your... it's kind of like, you know, how people talk about like what you say is what you do, right? Like your actions match your words, and like when your internal state with your emotions and your mind and your like, or your emotions and your thoughts match your actions, that's aligned action, right? And then I would even add like with the Chariot card, when you're aligned with your whatever you want to call your spiritual connection, your cosmic connection, but when you're aligned on that level and you're aligned with your thoughts and you're aligned with your heart, and then you move forward from your will, you're moving forward with this aligned action, right? So I'm seeing that there's a need to go forth into the world and to move forward in these ways, right? So I just want to encourage you to make sure that you are taking aligned action, and I think maybe that the beginning of the month and actually examining the doing the research that you're doing has maybe something to do with that. That's my roommate, you guys. So yeah, so it has to do with this, with whatever you're looking at and examining in the beginning, right? Now we come to the end of the month, and you're one of 3 signs I think that's been through today where we are looking at the end of the month where the eclipses are what I was going to say, where the eclipse starts, like the first one starts, and we have the Ace of Wands, and then we also have the Lovers card. So I wanted clarification on it, and so what we have here is we have the Ace of Wands, and then we have the Lovers card. Now, a lot of people will look at the Lovers card that are not familiar with tarot and go, oh my god, it's about love and lovers. Not necessarily. So I want to talk about that for a moment because it is a general reading, and so I want to make sure that we're like covering all of our bases. You know, the Ace of Wands is really just like this spark of creativity, this spark of like action and passion and creation and inspiration, and that you're being given. It's almost like, you know, whatever, the universe, the gods, whoever, they're handing you this kind of like staff, a fiery torch staff of like passion and creativity and spark that you can choose to do whatever you want to do with, right? Which I think is part of like what's happening in this month for you, is like you're making some decisions about like what moves do you actually want to make, right? So with that said, Now this could be flirtatious energy. Like the page or the Ace of Wands can be very much about like having that very flirtatious like spark in life, that like twinkle in your eye and like a mischievous smirk and going through life that way. It can totally be about that, but that's not necessarily what it has to be about. So somebody, this actually could be related to a relationship of some kind, you know, something starting up possibly. However, the Lovers card is more about the connections that you have, like a connection that you have closely with somebody where the sum of the two of you coming together is greater than you are individually, right? So you have certain strengths and qualities, they have certain strengths and qualities, and each of you, it's almost like you're lacking the ones that the other one has. Not in a bad way lacking, but you know, it's like they possess certain strengths and qualities that you don't necessarily have honed as skills, and you the same, right? And so it feeds into each other and it creates this kind of divine connection, we could say, or it creates this greater connection where you are able to create and build on something that is more mature. It's a transformative connection. And we can have these transformative connections with friendships, with business partnerships, and also with lover relationships, right? So yes, for some of you, it could be related to love. It could be related to creating this like grander connection, right? This, and getting information and keys to what will serve your purposes better, your projects better, your life better, your relationships better. Does this mean that they are the one? Maybe. I don't know. Not necessarily though. I like to make sure that when I'm pulling the Lovers card that people understand this doesn't mean that like, oh, this is your fated soulmate or something like that. No, it does mean though that it's a transformative connection. And so that is important. I feel like that is worthy of your attention and understanding is that. Do you guys realize that there are decks on this table that I have not used yet today? I just feel like I always want to pull out so many. Anyway, okay. So that's what we have as like where the energy is going for the month of October for you. And also just wanting to point out that the overall vibe of the month, and this is the one that I didn't do a close-up of. Yeah, I didn't really get this one. Is the Seven of Cups, right? So it's just like, imagine yourself standing in front of this shelf and you see all of these different cups in front of you and they all have a different quality about them and they all have like a different size or something that's special about them. And so it's just like, oh, which one do I choose? Like which opportunity, which possibility, which path? And this can also be about like really imagining your, the paths that are available to you in life, right? So this is like standing in front of them going like, which one do I choose? There are so many opportunities. This one's great for this reason. This one's great for that reason. And you can get lost in the sauce with this. Like you can definitely get lost inside of your own fantasies and daydreams. So I really want to encourage you, especially when it comes to people, because the shadow side of Libra can be putting people on pedestals or really identifying with them. So I'm not saying that for all Libras. Again, like we don't know your natal chart, so not looking at natal charts, if that may not really apply for you. So what we're looking at is like there are just so many different possibilities and opportunities you want to really consider. You want to not over consider, but you also want to make sure that you make some decisions. And it looks like through the month you're going to be like really considering your decisions at the beginning, and then moving into some more aligned action, and then really have a spark to go forward. And I think that it has to do with some kind of connection that is going to be aligned, whether that's a business collaboration or whatever it is. So just some things to consider. That's what I have for you for the month of October, Libras. So that's what we have for you. All right. So hopefully that is helpful. I see people that are here. So then we have Scorpio, Capricorn, Aquarius. Oh no, we did Scorpio, sorry. We have Sagittarius. We did Capricorn. So we have Sagittarius, Aquarius, and Pisces. So if any of those are the ones that you want me to read first, let me know and I will read those first. Lyra is back to let me know that I need to hurry up and feed her. Yes. All right, you guys. So if I know there's a lag, so I like to give people time. All right. So we're going to get into Sagittarius. All right, Saggies. All right, my Saggies. Sagittarius, sun, rising, moon. All right. We're coming up on very soon here. It's going to be Sag time. Very soon. Very soon. Feeling like, oh, no, not that one. Let's keep going. Oh, it is that one. And that one. Okay, cool. So Sagittarius, the overall vibe of the month that we're going to be looking at a little bit more deeply is we have the Four of Wands and the Page of Wands. A lot of fire. It's appropriate for a fire sign. So starting out the month with asking yourself some big picture questions. You need to stop looking outside of yourself right now and recognize that you have some of you have the answers that you need, right? Like there is a time to go and learn and explore, like other perspectives and to learn from other people. And there's a time to integrate and ask yourself these questions and know that you have a lot of these answers. If you're super heavily Sagittarius oriented, then you have done a lot of this kind of like work and study, and like you don't need more work and study sometimes. Sometimes what you need to do is integrate and realize that you have learned quite a lot. I'm feeling it's like gotta go with how it feels. So that's what we got. She's waiting patiently on the side. Patiently. All right, Sagittarius. So as I was saying, in the beginning of the month, we're looking at the Hermit card. And the Hermit card is really all about asking yourself, going within and asking yourself these big picture questions. You need to spend a little bit of time alone, not to say that you need to become the hermit, but at the beginning of the month, it would behoove you to spend some time on your own, like carve out some time where you can really listen to yourself, really listen to all the wisdom that you've acquired over this time. Sagittarians tend to be people who they're like studious, and they're learning, and they're open, and they're about belief structures. They're willing to explore and adventure, like not just in the world, but also in like learning, right? So this is something to actually pay attention to and explore internally. Like ask yourself the big picture questions. Where am I now? What resonates with me now? What kinds of friendships, what kinds of projects, what do I feel now about the things that I was like moving towards? Do I still feel the draw to move in those directions, or do I need to shift and move paths? Do I need to tweak anything? Who do I want to have be a part of my life? What kinds of connections? What kinds of conversations? What kind of sex do I want to have? Like all of the things. These are the things that you want to be asking yourself, right? So doing some serious examination about the big picture questions in life. Where do you want to go next? How do you want your life to look? Is the trajectory that you're on really still aligned with you, or do you need to make some tweaks to it, right? Because it's always changing, right? Even if it's pretty steady. Come into the middle of the month and it's like, whew, it is time for you to like enjoy your life. Enjoy like being in a space of community. So if you've been looking to cultivate community, if you have strong Sagittarian tendencies, if you have strong Jupiter placements, it's important for you to connect with other people. It's important for you to have some of that social time. Even if you're like an extroverted introvert and you need to have that downtime for yourself, like the Hermit card, you still need to get out there and have like good food, good libations, good music, laughter, connection, community. This is important, and you need to be paying attention to this, okay? So that's a really big piece. Now we have also, interesting. Okay. So, okay. Interesting. So there's a lot that you are weighing out right now, Sagittarius. There's a lot that you're weighing out. You're at the precipice of starting a new world, a new adventure, something new. Like maybe you're starting a new career path, or you've been starting on that path. Maybe you are starting in new relationships, dating, or something like that, right? It could be choosing to move somewhere else in the world. Who knows, right? But there is this kind of like new path that is in front of you that that is being examined, and you're weighing out like what fits into this and what doesn't. And I'm noticing here that there's a lot of vacillating between these different areas, right? It's like, now you're over here, no, now you're over there. Oh no, now I feel this way, now I don't feel that way. Oh, these people feel like they're a part of it, these people don't. Like, or do they? I'm not really sure. How do I balance? How do I balance my personal life and my work life? How do I balance or if you're a student, how do I balance my studies and work and my social life and dating or my relationship and family and my personal pursuits and my personal time and how do I make this all tangible? Right? Believe me, I know how that feels. So there's a lot that's being examined, and what you're really looking for is this sense of stability. You know, and I get the sense that for some of you, you've really been looking for this stability for some time, right? You want someone who has their shit together. If you're looking for a relationship, you want someone who's like solid. They've got like a solid, tangible future. Like, it seems like it's going to be safe on multiple levels, not just emotionally and mentally, but also probably financially, right? And you want to have a stable life for yourself, where you are this person in your own world. Like, you have created a sense of stability and safety for yourself, mentally, emotionally, financially, in your home, your tangible world, what you're creating, what is sustainable, what is stable. And this is something that you're craving and you're really wanting, and you're trying to figure this out. You are seriously trying to figure this out. Weighing things out. This is what I was talking about. You know, what fits, what doesn't? How can I create a world that is more balanced? And here you are at the precipice of like this, like, okay, you've completed a bunch of cycles. You know that you're already in a new cycle, or you're beginning one, or maybe more than one. And there's a lot to weigh out here. So there's a lot to do with this. That said, I think that there's a message that needs to really come through for some of you with the 5 of Cups, which is like, you got to stop beating yourself up over this shit. You can't keep like going over things again and again in your mind about what you have or haven't done, how you did or didn't do things, like the mistakes that you made, or like what opportunities you did or didn't take, or any of these things, like the regrets. The spilled milk. I call this the crying over spilled milk card. You gotta stop crying over spilled milk. Stop looking backwards. Stop looking at the past. Stop looking at what hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. Okay, so now you're here. And it's easier said than done, because I'm not attached to whatever it is that you're going through. But I can tell you that I know what it's like to be attached to all of that. And I know what it's like when we can free ourselves from that. And we can move forward in a way where it's like, okay, just like, enough ruminating on the past and the what was or would have, could have, what ifs and all the things. And it's time to just move forward. That's what it's time for. And this end of the month is really going to, in this particular eclipse season, it's really going to bring all of these things to light. Like, this is going to feel like a prominent energy in your life, these things that I'm talking about. And some people or projects or things or ideas are going to be eclipsed out. You know, I was just talking about how the Death card is really about like letting go of the things that no longer are aligned with us, the things that are holding us back or weighing us down, that aren't serving us, or that, you know, get in the way. And, you know, not unconsciously, not in a way where we're like hurting people and just discarding people, but like really when we've done the examination about what fits and what doesn't. Eclipse season eclipses people out. It also can bring in really new, beautiful connections, partnerships that are not just romantic. I know a lot of people are very interested in love and whatnot, and so am I, but this can be partnerships like collaborations and business and whatnot. But like, there has to be space made for it, and that means that you have to like let go of the shit that's dragging you down. And the eclipse is gonna do it for you if you don't do it yourself. Just saying. Don't say I didn't warn you. Okay? So let's get into the overall vibe of the month, right? And we have like the 4 of Wands that is showing up. 4 of Wands is really actually very celebratory. So for some of you, you are dealing with property. You're dealing with either like maybe a house or maybe van living, right? Like some kind of deal with like land or property or something like that is like possibly up for you. Now, if that doesn't resonate, it's really about a celebration of like a coming together of certain kinds of energies, and like the ability to be vulnerable and to feel safe and to be able to step into this experience, right? Usually with the Four of Wands, it's like you're beyond the confines of the kingdom walls, and also beyond them in a way that is more freeing. And one of the biggest pieces about the Four of Wands is this is a rite of passage. You're moving into a new direction. You're moving into a new kind of energy, right? And so the Four of Wands is like a rite of passage. A rite of passage could be like maybe you go from living with someone to getting married. Maybe you go from being married to having a baby. I'm not saying that this is how things are supposed to go. I know that's a very muggly way of putting things, but I'm just trying to give examples. Like you could go from, like not having your cycle into puberty and like actually having your cycle for the first time. Like all of those are rites of passage. Men have their own rites of passage, moving from their youth into more like a adolescence manhood, right? Like there's all of these rites of passage. You could go from being a worker bee to being promoted. All kinds of rites of passage. So just consider for yourself what might be on the table in terms of rites of passage, and just know that this could be a very big theme for you in the month of October as we're moving through. And those rites of passage could actually come from the release of other people, projects, things, right? That we were just talking about. And then we also have with that the Page of Wands. The pages are a really youthful, idealistic kind of, energy. Very, very youthful, very curious is the Page of Wands. Like curious about like, I want to explore, which is super appropriate for a Sagittarius. I want to explore, I want to try this out, I want to know, I want to see what this is like. I want to experience, like also being very open to what life has to offer. Like what's over here and what's over there and who is this person and what's going on. Right, so this energy I really like for the overall, because it's like, yeah, you're asking yourself some big picture questions, remembering to like release and relax and enjoy life, be with the people who make you laugh, who are maybe for you thought-provoking people are the ones that make you happy, like the people who make you happy, who make you laugh, who make you feel like you're in community, have good food, have good libations, have good music, have some celebratory experiences. And then remember, like as you're coming into the eclipse period, these big picture questions that you're asking yourself at the beginning of the month with the Hermit card, this is going to inform how this all really plays out that we were talking about as we get towards like the end of the month into the eclipse season. Like what needs to go, what can stay. This is going to be really informative and helpful if you do the work at the beginning of the month to make sure that you don't have to be in a cave somewhere, right? You have to go off into the woods and stay there for like a week or two. You just need to create time, carve out some time for yourself to be able to consider what questions to ask yourself, so that you can move forward with clarity, and that it's coming from a place of like being aligned in your heart and your head and your spirit, right? So that you are moving forward in a way that feels aligned, and that by the time you get to eclipse season, it doesn't feel so like harsh, that you feel like it makes sense, even if there are certain projects that you're leaving behind or people or whatever it is that feel hard or difficult to let go of. It's like there's a kind of knowing that like, yes, this makes sense because of the things that I sussed out at the beginning of the month, right? So, I just saw this comment here. You feel it. I'm sorry that you're having a rough time, but opportunities coming in, feels chaotic and overwhelming. Not going to plan. Yeah, I mean, like, and that's kind of, and I'm sorry that you're going through that, honey. Like, and also, side note, very good to see you. Like, I haven't seen you in a minute. Really lovely to see you and some of the things that you've been up to, at least. But that is, that is like where we're going into. Like, the astrology, and I won't get too far into this because, like, I just don't feel like I'm well prepared enough to really talk about it at this moment. But what we're dealing with going through this particular month and going into eclipse season, and then through eclipse season moving into like later fall and even through some of like the winter, right? It's just a lot of intensity. A lot of things are coming up, and things, yeah, maybe they haven't been going to plan, but that's kind of to be expected with all of the different aspects that we've had. Like, we literally just came out of having 6 out of 7 planets retrograde as of this morning. Now we have 5 but still, you know, so not to put it all on astrology, but just to say, like, as a collective, I think a lot of us are having like things go, whoa, that's not going according to plan at all. Like, I really wanted these things to pan out and they're just not panning out in the way that I was hoping, you know. But I think that this kind of the self-examination, asking ourselves these questions, are what actually bring us about to this place where we start to kind of go, okay, like there's maybe an understanding that helps us to allow things to be where they are and how they show up, which doesn't necessarily make it totally easy, but I don't know if that's helpful. Hopefully that's helpful to think about. So, but that's what we have for our Sagittarius sun, rising, or moons. And then now we're going to move into the last two signs that we have are Aquarius and Pisces. So if you're here and in the space and you want me to read Aquarius or Pisces first, I don't have a preference. I'm just going to roll through the next two if I don't see anything in there. So, hey Adam, how's it going? Nice to see you. It's been a minute. So anyhow, Delmar, I love you, honey. It's so good to see you. So I hope that things lighten up. I hope that things unfold more easily, and that the plan, even if it doesn't go according to plan, that as you go through it, that it feels like the pieces are being laid out in a way that feels maybe better than they were. I hope. So, but sending you a bunch of hugs and love. So it's been a minute. Feel free to text me anytime that you want, okay? So, all right, I know there's a delay, but I don't see, my cat looked at me like, how dare you take this deck away from the side of me? I don't see anybody requesting anything specific, and I'm losing light quickly, so I'm going to get into the next two that I have, which are Aquarius and Pisces. So let's take a look at what's happening for Aquarius, since I don't see a request for either to go first. And sure. All right, Aquarius. I'm feeling this card here. Aquarius, you've got some good cards that are coming up so far. Overall vibe of the month, I mean, hey, I'm gonna celebrate you celebrating and being in community. I think you need to be in community. I think that you need to actually get out and be around people that you feel good around. I'm feeling this card here. So there goes Lyra. So I think that we start out the month with a feeling of maybe some healing and a feeling of some hope, some feeling of renewal that is coming forth. And that's what we have going on for the beginning of the month for you, Aquarius. So it's like there's this sense of peace and faith and hope and possibility and renewal. You know, like I call it the hope springs eternal card. So it's like, okay, hope springs eternal. Like we can believe that there is something that is on the horizon, or that we feel like we've been cleansed, and that like there is some goodness that's coming through. I just realized that I pulled that down too far. And so that's what we have like showing up at the beginning of the month, which I think you're going to need as you go through the rest of the month, Aquarius, because stepping into the middle of the month, we have the Six of Cups. So either we have somebody who is from your past, like this could be an ex or somebody that you used to know. It doesn't have to be romantically related, but it can be romantically related, that is from your past, that is like, it stirs up nostalgia, feelings that you've been wanting to experience or feel in your life. And so there is this draw to bring in those kinds of feelings. I would say that if it's an ex, it might be exiting very quickly, because towards the end of the month, near the eclipse, we have the Eight of Cups. And the Eight of Cups is really about something feeling like, oh, that was too heavy. It was like too heavy emotionally. I need to leave that behind and go off on my next journey, on like a spiritual journey, but on a journey, I need to go in this opposite direction and leave that behind. So for any of you that are dealing with an ex coming in, I'm just going to say it's looking like it'll feel like, oh yay, we've reconnected and all the nostalgic feelings, and then it'll be like, this shit is too heavy, I'm out, like, or they're out, you know? So I don't see that going forward. Now, this is a collective reading, so we are doing this for, like, apply this to your work, your projects, the friendships in your life, your family, lovers, whatever, right? So apply this as it makes sense. The other way that I would see this happening is that, you know, something triggers a sense of nostalgia and a feelings of wanting to connect to lighter times, to times where you felt maybe more free, more playful. Think about when you were a kid and you had, like, you were idealistic and you had all of this, like, this sense of possibility in the world, like the limitations that we develop as adults. It's like what makes sense and the reasonable reasons and all of that didn't exist. And so sometimes I find it really interesting that children can actually say some shit that is like, that's super profound. Like, that's actually quite brilliant, because they're not necessarily thinking outside of the box. They don't have the same box that we have created around ourselves. So they're able to see things in such a unique and youthful way, right? Oh, this is what you're going through. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So this is what I can say is like, okay, so this feeling might be coming up. This might be being brought forth. And also, I think that, and this is coming through really strongly, that energy coming forward when we get to the eclipse and into the end of the month, this month, right, is this feeling of like, oh man, that really, because of these really beautiful feelings and perspectives, it really has me be present to what isn't working and what is too heavy and what I cannot do anymore and I need to walk away from and go in a different direction, because that's what we have showing up for the Eight of Cups, right? It's like, okay, enough. Like, this is too heavy. This is too much. It's not just too heavy, it's emotionally heavy, right? Energetically heavy. So, and what you need to remember and stay in touch with, I think, is like kind of the vibes of the beginning of the month. But overall, I think that it's important, Aquarius, for you specifically to don't go into such an aloof state or a cold state. Make sure that you are getting out there. And I mean, look, Aquarius, you guys love, if you have strong Aquarius tendencies, you love to be around friends. You love to like go out and to be social. You have like a million friends around you all the time if you have strong Aquarian tendencies. Again, it's a collective reading, not looking at your natal chart, so I don't know. But if you do associate strongly with that, it's like, this is what you need. This is the medicine of your life. And this is the vibe. You just want to make sure you don't take it to a shadowy place where you're using that to escape and you're just like party all the time, right? So enjoy your community. Be in contact with the people that make you feel good. Laugh with the people. Eat good food. Drink good wine. Whatever it is. Dance to music. Have a good time. Be in connection with community that makes you feel good. So that I think that this would be actually grounding for you, and it'll help you move through some of the experiences that you're going to have later in the month, right? So just make sure that you don't go into a shadowy place with it at all, okay? So, let's see, what was this? Leaving the heaviness to go travel and plan a solo trip, that's awesome. But meeting up with friends, how awesome. Conscious connections, yeah. This is exactly the energy that I'm talking about. So that's super interesting. Delmar, that's super interesting. So, so that's what I have for you, Aquarius. That's what's going on. And then we are down to our last sign. So we are moving on to Pisces. Didn't I say last month that I was going to start first with Pisces if nobody else said anything? Because Pisces, you guys always have to wait till you're last. It's kind of like anybody with like a last name that's like an R or a Z or something. Sorry, I forgot all about that. Sorry, you guys. I'll try to remember for next month. But we are on our last sign, so let's get into it. Pisces. All right, Pisces. I feel like this is a so card, so let's do this. Page of Cups. That feels appropriate for a Pisces. It actually is a Piscean card, so that's no surprise there. So what's going on for the month of October for Pisces, Sun, Moon, or Rising? I'm feeling this card here, here, and here. Okay. an interesting, I'll come back around to that. Okay. All right. All right. So Pisces, what I see the overall vibe of the month that we have for you that's coming up is the Page of Cups. Now, we were just talking about page energy a few times actually today, but we were just talking about it. And the page energy is very youthful and idealistic, and very fanciful, you know, like all about the daydreams and play pretend world and the world of dreams and fantasy. Like that is the Page of Cups, which is very Piscean, you know, Pisces ruled by Neptune, and very much in that world, right? So it can be really beautiful and playful and full of like imagination and pictures and dreaming things up, right? And the side of that is the shadow side, can be escapism. And not that that's bad. Escapism can be like a super shadow side, but I think that escapism can sometimes look like, hey, there are some people that are sensitive souls in this world that actually need to be able to escape from this real world from time to time. They need breaks, and they don't have that grit that some other people have, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay for them to take breaks like that. I have been really getting to know certain Piscean energies, like other people, and seeing how true this is for them. I'm really losing light, so I'm going to try to like speed up here. So this is like the overall vibe of the month is like, okay, there is this kind of like a dreamy, very imaginative, can be very playful, like good feeling time. And then there's also the making sure that you don't fall into places of like too much dream time. No, like where the waters get murky, you know, and muddy, and there's like escaping and not having clarity, right? So just watch out for that. At the beginning of the month, we have the King of Cups, right? And the King of Cups is really just like, there we go. So you can see that there. It was a little bit blurry. So we have the King of Cups. The King of Cups is like, think about if you're ruling a kingdom. So if you're ruling a kingdom, you can't afford for emotions to come forward that throw you so off track and off kilter that you are unable to run the kingdom, that you're unable to be in your logical mind and do the things that are like earthy and structured that need to happen to be able to maintain your world, to be able to maintain some structure, to be able to function, really. So the King of Cups, like at the beginning of the month, you're being called to really step into a place where like the King of Cups can feel all the emotions and all the feeling and be still centered and able to function and make things happen. So for some of you Piscean, like super Piscean people out there, or like Neptune, like seriously, interestingly Neptune aspected in your natal chart, this can feel like a really big challenge for you, but it's important for you to keep that top of mind and heart, and to know it is possible for you to channel your emotions into action or groundedness, or to allow it to motivate you, or allow it to like inform how you create stability in your experience. And so it's important for you to like find that center space for yourself and to be able to navigate your emotions in a way that is where it doesn't take over you, and it allows you to, it informs your experience, and it actually is a strength as opposed to a weakness. Okay, so then we're coming into the middle part of the month, and it looks like there's something that needs to be decided. Like there's some things that need to be dealt with. You know, you're coming to a crossroads of something that you need to choose between this or that. And maybe that's what all the emotions coming out up about. Maybe that's why there is like this dreamy kind of dream time vibe to the overall month. Maybe because you are needing to kind of dream into the possibilities of like where you could go. Are you going this way or that way? Are you choosing between this project or that one, this person or that one, right? Like maybe there is like a crossroads that you're coming to where you're really needing to make this decision, right? And so part of this card is really tapping into your intuition. really not just like using your logic and your way of coming at things in a rational way and reasonable reasons, and not just your emotions, but really going inward and tuning into your intuition and seeing like what is inside at the core telling you and informing you about where to move next with things. And I think this is really important because it looks like towards the end of the month, there isn't a completion point with what you're dealing with. Like whatever is on deck, whatever this is all about for you, it seems like it's going to continue into November. There isn't like some kind of conclusion to it. So we're having more than one eclipse, right? There's a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse. So we're having one of the first of the two on, I believe it's October 25th, and then, you know, the next one soon after. So I feel like this theme, whatever you're dealing with, is going to be moving into the month of November, because we're like moving into a Seven of Wands. Now, Seven of Wands, we're dealing with Seven of Wands. This is really about like knowing that you're having conflicting desires between yourself and other people in your world. And this is not, it's not necessarily like the Seven of Swords or Five of Swords. Seven of Wands is like, you're having to hold your ground. Like you have fought to get to a certain maybe vantage point, like you've gained ground, like you've had to, it's like hard won. The things that you've come to have been hard won, and you're having to hold your ground against other people's ideas about what they believe you should be working towards, or what they believe you should be wanting or creating in your world. So this is like, if you have created some boundaries around, like maybe you're trying to create certain things in your life, projects, or go into like a passion purpose or a relationship or whatever it is, right? It's like, of course it's good for us to consider things, but like if you have, like let's say in terms of like business or a career, like you fought for a certain position, a certain way of like where you are as a person in your world, in your company, and you're like at this level, and now you have people that are like trying to kind of like come and poke at your boundaries, and they're kind of trying to like test your boundaries. And this is the point where you're having to like hold the space that you have gained, that you have gathered, and the ground that you won, right? The ground that you have gained in this kind of journey that you've been on. I don't want to say war, but like, you know, it's like when you fought to get to a certain place in your life, when you've gone through multiple battles to like win a certain level of recognition, or to win a project, or to be recognized for certain things that you've put forth in this world, and you've really put forth the energy, and now you're being tested. So towards the end of the month of October, I can see that you're being tested, your boundaries are being tested, certain things are being tested in your world, and this is the point where you need to like really be holding fast to like what is true and so for you, what feels right and true for you, and to hold to that ground. So this is the time for you to like hold on and fight for what you believe in. And I don't mean fight like you need to get in arguments, but like just as a way of talking about this, like you need to really be strong in what you believe and what you're wanting to create in this world, and hold your ground with that. That's not to say, like, I think that sometimes people take that and they really run with it, and I think it's healthy and good for us to examine when other people are giving us feedback, to at least pause and consider it privately, and to wonder like, is that true? Should I consider that? All these different things. But when push comes to shove, if you feel like this is what is aligned with your core, with your soul, and this is what needs to happen, then you hold your ground. And this is like, you are going to be tested in some way when it comes to your boundaries, or when it comes to this realm at the end of the month. So I'm gonna pull one more card, but then I gotta go, because like, you guys, look at how dark it's getting. It's crazy dark. It's getting dark. And I didn't set up my light for this. So, okay. So spiritual advice that's coming through, because I wanted to just like see like how can you be helped with this kind of testing of your boundaries. You need to basically speak up and say what's there to say. You got to be like super truthful. You got to know yourself, know what's true for you, know what you needs to be communicated, and communicate it if it needs to be more directly and more maybe confronting, then it has to be. I find that we can often communicate things in a direct way, and it doesn't have to be like toxic or intense, or like people think I have to communicate with force because they're not used to like holding their ground in a really calm way. You can speak your truth and you can say things very plainly, very matter-of-factly, and very directly, and you're being called to actually stand for yourself in that way. And then we have also the Seven of Pentacles. So you need to be patient. Okay, so there are some things like you're being called out, like maybe your boundaries are being tested, but you need to hold fast and have some patience with this. So have some patience, hold on. You're going to be along for the ride, but you have worked so hard to cultivate certain things. You've been patiently tending to your garden, and so it's time to have a little bit more patience. And also, while you're in this patience like holding state, maybe just take a little bit of time to examine like what is worth continuing to cultivate or not. Very important, especially in eclipse season, okay? And then, last card that we have before I'm going to dip out, make sure that I can see that correctly, see I'm losing light, is the Six of Pentacles. Yes, my love. So, Six of Pentacles. Sorry, that's my kitty. She's like coming up here. So, oh, you guys. I think overall, your spiritual advice is really speaking to really taking some time to pause and reflect on what needs to be communicated, and to hold fast to your position, to know that there are certain things in the works that are going to be creating some like grounding and you're holding fast to certain boundaries and what you're like wanting to create in your world. And so you need to know yourself well enough to know those things well enough to be able to communicate those things. But that doesn't mean that there isn't time for reflection. Like you need to actually take that time to pause and reflect and notice like what in my world needs to continue to be cultivated and what not, right? So tap into your intuition. Don't let your emotions rule you through the month. But do allow yourself to be open to the possibilities, to imagine and feel into the different possibilities that might exist for you there, you know. And remember to like when you do discover what is like at the center and what is actually solid for you, that you just need to hold fast into the next month. So I hope that this is helpful for you, Pisces. I know that if you have really serious Piscean tendencies, that can be a little bit, you know, challenging for you. So, but yeah, hopefully this is helpful. So thank you guys for hanging out, for joining me for all of these readings. I hope that they prove helpful for you. Remember to read your sun, moon, or sun, rising, or moon. If you're watching this on YouTube, just remember that the timestamps are down below. I'm probably going to put this up on Rumble too. And yeah, if you want to get 50% off a reading, there's a link down below. And if you want to book a personal one-to-one reading, 30-minute, 60-minute, or 90-minute reading with me, you can find that either in my link in bio, or you can DM me for that. But the links will also be down in the description if you're watching the replay on YouTube. I have to go. My light has faded immensely. So thank you guys for everything. Thanks for being here. Oh, thanks, Adam. Thank you. So I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you being here. I can't actually see who's on here anymore, but thank you guys, and I will talk to you all soon. Bye.